Birom and Fulani. We are all together, working together, the same together, and everything we are doing together. Yes, that's unity. And at the end of the day, it brings us to peace.
When you go back home and you tell people what you're doing here, what do people say? Are they surprised?
Yes, some of them, they find it very amazing. Just we snap ourselves, we take it back home, they see us working together, and that's when they started believing that, yes, actually we can still integrate together again, and we live together in peace like it was before.
Have you lost people in the crisis?
Oh yes, a lot of people. Yes, even before Christmas, along Bachi Road, one of our young person that was killed on the way. You see, these are some of the things that are becoming a barrier to the peace we are building. But we will not give up as a team. We tell our brothers, our people that are doing this to stop it so that we can have a lasting peace.
Next to him is a Fulani friend, Abdullahi Zulkifu Adam.
We enjoy being with them because we are cracking jokes together, we live together now, and this one is impacting a lot in building peace in this community. We can't achieve anything without peace. They are peace-loving people, and amongst them there is black sheep that do not love peace. Among us too, there is black sheep that do not love peace, and all those people should be fetched out and they face the penalty of what they are doing, so that the innocent one can live in peace.
But it must be hard for people to come together given the pain that has been caused and suffered in both communities.
Yes, when we come together, we discuss such things. Because without talking to you, I will not know the problems you have with me. Based on dialogue, we will be able to sort things out.
We do talk about the violence. Nobody would like to send his child to the school when there is no peace. The violence has made people not to come and farm here. It's a bitter experience, but we realize violence is not the best option. We have to live in peace.
Enduring peace requires state support, and there are many layers to the violence in Plateau, no one solution. All sides have suffered, but for small communities long locked in conflict, it can feel like a battle for survival. And despite the rhetoric and claims of a Christian genocide, Nigeria's huge population of both faiths largely live in peace. Yet insecurity is a huge problem in rural Nigeria, and villagers across the country often point to the same core issues: the absence of government, of justice, of faith in the security forces. Fixing that is difficult. So in the meantime, it's left to people like Abdullahi and Amos to try to make their own peace.
By God willing, it will happen because we have started seeing change.
Peace is a gradual thing that you build, and we have come to this stage. And as far as I'm concerned, we'll continue until we get a perfect peace as it is. Yes.
This episode of Assignment was written and presented by me, Alex Last. The series editor is Penny Murphy.
That was Assignment from the BBC.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio, and we're live in downtown Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. It will be a high of minus 17 that we'll get to, a cloud cover in the city today, and in Brandon, minus 18. So Winnipeg, minus 17, Brandon, minus 18. Clear up in Thompson, and also minus 18. Thanks for joining us. We're on air till 8:37 with your morning show. Corey Funk will pick up the phone if you have a problem in traffic. Corey also directs the program. Hi, Cor. Good morning to Mr. Abby Adiyemi. There he is behind the controls. Abby's our senior tech, and we'll cover weather on the program. And there's Mr. Darren Marash, holding down YouTube, our producer of our live stream if you're watching the show there. So I mentioned 3 minutes to 6 o'clock on air till 8:37. We'll tell you what's coming up on the show in a moment. First, let's get into the news cycle. Heather Wells is here with our headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, the head of the Manitoba Heavy Construction Association is surprised the NDP government's allowing a major trade college to close down. The Manitoba Institute of Trades and Technology is shutting down after the school year, blaming a drop in foreign student enrollment. Chris Lawrence points out it's happening just as the province has been talking up the importance of training for construction jobs. A new report from a Winnipeg City Councillor calls for more government funding for new playground equipment. St. Vital Councillor Brian Mays has released a report calling for a new model of funding school play structures. He wants it to include assistance from not just parents, but the province, municipalities, and school divisions. We'll hear more in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, we're going to talk to a high school student in Winnipeg today. After last year's Winnipeg transit changes, this student says that he's fed up with his commute. He's turned it into a bit of a class project around democracy. He's written to his local councillor, so he's going to be here actually with his teacher coming up a little later. Also in the program this morning, we are going to be following a story that was in the news earlier in the week. After a series of extortion cases involving local businesses here in our city, Winnipeg police have charged 5 people. But we're going to hear more from a criminologist who says it's part of a larger pattern across Canada. If you haven't been paying attention to what's been going on in BC and Ontario, some of those mayors of those cities are calling for a national emergency around this. So stay tuned and we're going to find out more about what that pattern is and how concerned we all should be. So that's also coming up.
On cue.
It's funny to me. I think that's funny. That's comedy. That's comedy.
I'm Talia Schlanger in for Tom Power. James Acaster is one of the UK's funniest comedians, but he used to be pretty hard on his audience. If things were not connecting, if people weren't laughing, that was their fault. James will tell you about the one gig that changed his outlook and why he started to welcome hecklers.
Q this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. It is down to business today for the Prime Minister and Premiers. Mark Carney hosted First Ministers for dinner last night at his Harrington Lake retreat. And later this morning, their summit begins in Ottawa. Janice McGregor is in our Parliamentary Bureau. And Janice, there are many topics on the agenda, but economic trade issues will dominate. What can you tell us?
Marcia, no big breakthroughs or decisions yet on the specific projects that premiers are pitching as part of the national strategy to build up Canada's economic defences. But while they don't lead negotiations, provincial premiers are important players in not just preparations for the review of the North American Trade Agreement, but also the ongoing push to diversify Canada's trade. BC Premier David Eby, for example, recently back from his own trade mission in India ahead of the Prime Minister's visit there later this spring. And provinces have their own people in Washington too, preparing for what Eby acknowledged yesterday is probably going to be a pretty rough ride between now and the July 1st deadline for renewing CUSMA.
It's going to take an all-Canada effort to get this across the line, but really impossible to know where the Americans are at, what their plans are, what they hope to get out of this. This is supposed to be a review, not a renegotiation, but clearly that's not the case. So.
The Prime Minister told reporters yesterday that Canada's consultations on what it wants from this review are complete. But Carney needs to make sure all the premiers are on board. Ontario Premier Doug Ford yesterday said Team Canada's all on the same page, but then in the next breath pitched his idea of building a fortress Can-Am around manufacturing in his province. And that's exactly the kind of comment that risks offending Mexican officials, just as Dominic LeBon is preparing to lead a trade mission there next month.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Britain's Prime Minister says relations with China are in a strong and good place. Keir Starmer is in Beijing meeting with President Xi Jinping. Starmer says much of their discussion is about trade.
It was a real strengthening of the relationship, and that's in the national interest because, of course, there are huge opportunities here in China. It's the second biggest economy in the world, and that's why we've got such a big business delegation.
Starmer is the first British Prime Minister to visit China since 2018. He is the latest world leader to make the trip. Earlier this month, Prime Minister Mark Carney was in Beijing to advance Canada's trade relationship. A number of countries are looking to China as trade friction with the Trump administration heats up. China says it has executed 11 people reported to be members of a Myanmar gang. The notorious Ming family mafia operates scam centers along the border with China. The group was sentenced for crimes such as fraud, gambling, and homicide. The gang is one of many that have trafficked hundreds of thousands of people across Southeast Asia. Many of the victims are forced to run online scams. Pakistan is the latest country to order enhanced health screening for people entering. Officials there are looking for signs of the Nipah virus. India has confirmed 2 cases of the rare infection. It can cause fever and brain inflammation and has a high mortality rate. South Asia correspondent Salima Shivji has more on the efforts to stop the spread.
A busy street outside a hospital in India's West Bengal state, where more than 190 people are quarantined. They were all in contact with the 2 healthcare workers that Indian officials have confirmed contracted Nipah virus. The patients in isolation tested negative for the virus, says Dr. Subarna Goswami, the head of the Darjeeling Tuberculosis Hospital, but they're still being monitored. Nipah virus, which is usually transmitted to humans from pigs or fruit bats, is highly contagious, and there is no vaccine. It's also difficult to diagnose and deadly. The fatality rate is between 40 and 75%, according to the World Health Organization. But Kolkata-based infectious disease specialist Dr. Deep Narayan Mukherjee says health officials in West Bengal have done a good job of detecting and containing the virus so far.
The 2 cases which have been diagnosed, now one is out of danger and another one is recovering. So you can say mortality is still now nil.
But at several airports across Asia, including in Thailand and Indonesia, thermal screening has been set up as a precaution, and some tourists are nervous.
Of course, we're all afraid of all the viruses, especially after Corona. We think we should be very careful about these kind of diseases.
There have been small Nipah outbreaks nearly every year in Asia. The last major one in India killed 17 people in the southern state of Kerala, and 2 more died in 2023. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Mumbai.
There will be death, no more weeping.
Singing and grieving in Minneapolis last night, mourners gathered to remember Alex Preddy. ICE agents shot and killed the 37-year-old ICU nurse over the weekend. People at the vigil cried and danced together. People in Minneapolis are demanding accountability for Preddy's death and the death of Renee Good. Good was the other U.S. citizen shot and killed by ICE agents in the city. Later this morning, we are expecting to hear from Tom Homan for the first time. He's the White House border czar, now overseeing that operation in Minneapolis. The Assembly of First Nations is cautioning Indigenous travelers about entering the United States. Treaty rights allow them to pass freely across the U.S. border. As Jocelyn Chappelle reports, the AFN says there are reports of people being questioned and detained.
AFN advises that any First Nation to make sure that our people are well aware, to make sure that they have documentation.
Assembly of First Nations Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Neepanak says travelers should be extra vigilant. She says crossing the border should not be something Indigenous people fear. But the detention of Indigenous people by immigration agents makes a warning necessary.
The AFN strongly condemns these actions and reaffirms First Nations' inherent right and our Jay Treaty right to cross the border.
The 1794 Jay Treaty allows unrestricted travel for individuals with at least 50% blood quantum, or Indigenous ancestry.
More or less, they put me through hell for 2.5 hours.
Harley Manakis, who is Gwich'in, was detained last week during a layover in Texas. He was traveling from Costa Rica back home to the Northwest Territories. Familiar with the Jay Treaty, he told agents he was eligible to travel freely under it, but was unaware he needed a blood quantum letter.
Luckily that I managed to get the phone call to my wife and tell her I needed the blood quantum, and thankful to my uncle, my auntie, chief and council that everybody jumped in and a few more extra people, and they got me that paper at the right time.
Global Affairs Canada says it is aware of multiple cases of Canadians currently or previously in immigration-related detention in the U.S., and that consular officials can provide assistance to Canadians detained abroad. Jocelyn Chappelle, CBC News, Yellowknife.
The push to buy Canadian is loud and clear. Prime Minister Mark Carney renewed that call again this week, but some shoppers say it can be tough. As our colleagues at Marketplace found out, some Canadian-looking products might actually be American. Here is Rosa Marcatelli.
Okay, proudly Canadian on the front. Same thing on the back.
We're at the grocery store on a mission to buy Canadian. For many, that means picking products that were made here with homegrown ingredients. But some shoppers tell us it's not that easy.
Canada's #1 brand.
St. Catharines, Ontario's Dave Lawson noticed that on Betty Crocker's chocolate chip cookie mix, labeled Canada's #1 selling baking mix brand, with a maple leaf on the front. But on the back, where it's easy to miss, product of the USA.
And I go, okay, this is advertising trying to make it look Canadian when in reality it's not.
General Mills, the company behind the cookie mix, says it is Canada's top-selling baking brand. The label isn't new, and it reflects the pride they feel being part of kitchens across the country.
McCain isn't just a company in Canada.
Even iconic brands can surprise. McCain Super Spirals fries, Maple Leaf, proudly Canadian on the front, but they're a product of the U.S. McCain says the machinery to make their Super Spirals fries only exists there, saying they are proudly Canadian, with 92% of the potato products they sell grown and made in Canada, adding their labels follow regulations. Mike Von Masso is a food economics professor at the University of Guelph.
We are seeing some maple washing, whether intentional or not.
The federal minister responsible for ensuring labels are clear and accurate, Marjorie Michel, tells us the government is looking into it. Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Toronto.
For the full investigation, watch The Maple Makeover tomorrow night at 8:30 in Newfoundland. You can watch on CBC Television, CBC Gem, or on our YouTube channel. That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. It is in Winnipeg going to be minus 17 today. We are going to get warmer, actually, after we turn the corner over this weekend, but still chilly out there for sure. Thanks for joining us on CBC's Morning Show. This hour on the show, the Duckworth Challenge is back. I'm sure you've been to a game or two. University of Manitoba, University of Winnipeg, men's and women's volleyball and basketball teams. We're going to tee that up for you. It's coming up. In addition, this hour on the program, we're going to talk about AI moving into the physical world. The field of robotics has entered the next stage. We're going to talk about humanoid robots. Could they help you with your laundry? That's probably the question a lot of people have. But also, on a serious note, what is the risk to the workforce when these things enter the sphere? And our premier was speaking yesterday as he gathers with the Prime Minister and other premiers across the country. We're going to have some analysis of those meetings in Ottawa. So all of that's still ahead on CBC. Right now, let's get into the news and the headlines with Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, the City of Winnipeg is launching a pilot project to develop certain derelict and vacant properties into affordable housing meant for home ownership. The city's manager of strategic planning says the program would see some city-owned lots transferred to Manitoba Housing. Jonathan Hildebrand says he is optimistic about this pilot, in part because the city's already worked with social enterprises. The head of a construction association says he is sad. A major trade college is closing. The Manitoba Institute of Trades and Technology is shutting its doors after this school year, blaming a drop in foreign student enrollment. Chris Lawrence at the Manitoba Heavy Construction Association is surprised. He says in the last couple of days, the province has been talking up the importance of training Manitobans wanting careers in construction. I'll be back with more on these stories and other Manitoba news coming up at 6:30.
That's quite a development, isn't it?
Absolutely surprising, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Let's get into what is happening in the weather in some more detail. As I mentioned, Abby, the temperatures don't tell quite the whole story.
No, Marcy, another frigid start to Junior Friday, and this is what we'll track into the weekend with biting wind chills. We might see a mix of sun and clouds somewhere in between for both the northern part of the province and down south. You know, commuting to work this morning, I noticed one of the transit buses that still says not in service yet, and then and it was all frosted out, like it's all frosty. Usually I see inside the bus, I'm like, oh, it is really cold. So you will notice that this morning temperatures at the airport were tracking around minus 26, but at the Forks it says minus 24. We'll see temperature hold steady between that minus 25 in most part of the city this morning. Expect some clouds to start. That would clear by late afternoon with light winds, and then we warm up to about minus 18. Though the morning wind chill for Winnipeg will be around minus 35, which means there's a risk of frostbite. Currently, Brandon and Dauphin sit at minus 30 under clear skies, but we'll see wind chills close to minus 40 for those regions. While up north, we're seeing temperatures around minus 20 to minus 26. Also, the wind chill is a concern in that part of the province, so take it easy. For Winnipeg right now, we are around minus 25.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Abby Adeyemi covers our forecasts on the show every morning. And Corey Funk's here with the commute.
Yes, quiet commute. So far, haven't heard of any issues on the highways or the roads, but it's usually around now when cars start stalling here and there throughout the city. So if you see one of them, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. We had a lot of stalled cars yesterday. You can give me a call, 204-788-3093.
Well, as I mentioned, this weekend, the 34th annual Duckworth Challenge is on. The University of Winnipeg, the University of Manitoba compete for citywide bragging rights and more this year, actually. There's another thing up for grabs. The Duckworth Challenge was established in 1991 by Dr. Henry Duckworth, in case you're curious. He was University of Winnipeg's second president and vice chancellor from the 70s to the 80s. He later served as chancellor at the U of M into the late 80s and early 90s. So he's been to both places, or he was. Starting tonight, the Westman and Bison's basketball and volleyball teams will face off in a series of matchups, men's and women's. David Larkins and Ken Bentley know the challenge too well. David is media and operations coordinator with Westman Athletics and up early with us on Zoom. Hi there.
Good morning.
Thanks for being with us early. I appreciate it. And Ken Bentley is on the split screen if you're watching on YouTube. Ken's the head coach of University of Manitoba women's volleyball team. Hi there.
Good morning.
How's your team doing this year, Ken?
Good, actually. Thanks for asking. We're 12-4 now, so in a good position to host, and obviously this weekend will go a long way in, contributing to that cause. So we're still focused on that as a priority. Yeah.
How do you coach going into this event? Because obviously there's some fun rivalry here, but then you're also coaching some really competitive players who, as you said, are having a good season. So, what's your mindset coaching the players for this weekend and how to think of it?
I mean, probably the same as all the other coaches. I mean, every program right now is in a position for playoffs, and so that's really the primary focus. But the idea of the Duckworth's been awesome. I mean, I will say that I'm the only coach to have been there for all 34 Duckworth challenges, so I can hang that on my mantle. But it's grown in notoriety, and it's just created more awareness for the rivalry between Winnipeg and Manitoba, and it's been a fantastic thing. So, it's just great to get more of the community involved in university sports, and that's what I think Dr. Duckworth was driving for initially, and I think it's been a really big success. So, the alumni are really aware of it, and so we see a big turnout from the alumni, I'm sure, as David recognizes when he's driving his programming at UW. So it's just been a net positive for university sport, really.
Yeah, it's such a community thing. I'll come back to you and ask you what the first one was like, because I can't resist. But David, over to you. Tell me a little bit about the University of Winnipeg and what it feels like to be part of this, and what the atmosphere is like from your perspective.
Well, I think with us being the smaller school, there's always a little bit of the chip on our shoulder for that. We know that going against a program like U of M with all the talented student athletes that they have over there, that there's always a little bit of a heightened intensity to this series. And from our perspective, a lot of these student athletes, as Ken will certainly attest, have played together before, played against each other before in terms of their development growing up before they got to their respective campuses. So that always adds a little bit of an extra angle to it. From our perspective, we're always excited to to get into the Duckworth and take on the crosstown rivalry. And again, yeah, we from a promotional standpoint, we always see an uptick in terms of interest and attendance in this series, and we certainly expect that that'll be the same thing again this year.
You've also got, it's coinciding with another celebration that's happening at U of W this weekend, I think tomorrow night, right? You're hosting.
Yeah, so we're going to have.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we're going to have some an Indigenous celebration as we do every year. So we're excited to bring some extra programming, entertainment to our games on Friday. And yeah, so there's again there's a lot going on this weekend on both campuses, and that will add, of course, to the interest level.
So Ken, you've been coaching the women's volleyball team at U of M for some 40 years, I think. You said obviously because of that you remember the first Duckworth. Do you remember what it was like? Was it sort of immediately a success because of all the things that David's highlighting, the athletes knowing each other, that friendly rivalry, or what do you remember anything about it?
I think we won, but I'd have to go back and dig. Maybe David knows, but it was just the start of something new, which was great. And I think too, what's important to point out is that, we used to play each other a lot more in volleyball and basketball than we do now, because we're part of Canada West now, so we're part of this bigger league and conference. So we used to play each other far too often. And so when you play each other that often, I think emotions get a bit harder, and the rivalry gets a bit more intense. So I think this is the first time we've played Winnipeg all year long, which is a little unusual. Usually we played some exhibition beforehand, but we've yet to play each other. So I can't speak for the guys if they have or not, our men's volleyball team, but I think it's great. It's a bit more refreshing when you don't play the same team as often as we used to. There's one year we played each other 14 times.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to develop some hard feelings if you play one team 14 times.
No doubt.
So it's great. I love the fact that when we do play each other, there's more of a heightened awareness because it just doesn't happen as often as it used to. So I think it's really good that way.
And the crowds are fun, right? I mean, the crowds are all local too, so everybody's got that local action in the crowds too. So the winning school gets citywide bragging rights, David. But I alluded to the fact there's another incentive this year. So what is it?
Yeah, so we're excited about this. Both campuses are excited about this. That the winner of the Duckworth Challenge will have their team colors put on the Winnipeg sign at the Forks. That's the first time that we've done that. We had a really great media launch at City Hall with the mayor and other dignitaries on Monday. We've gotten a lot of interest from around some, as I said, some of the politicians that were able to attend. And so, yeah, the winners will have their team colors put on the Winnipeg sign, and so that's an opportunity to, a real tangible element of being able to have those bragging rights across the city.
Fun stuff. We'll all be able to know who won then too. If we don't make it to the end of the tournament and the results, it'll be there in bright lights for folks. Just as a last question, Ken, I can't resist because you've been involved in women's volleyball for so long. I've played volleyball in the city for a long time. I wonder what you think of the development now for players, women players in Winnipeg, because you're a women's coach. And the opportunities that are here.
Yeah, I mean, certainly club volleyball has grown exponentially, as you're probably aware. We have more players than we have programs and coaches at the moment. And so, the unfortunate part of our growth is that we can't really service everybody who wants to play volleyball, especially on the women's side. And so that's translated, obviously, into stronger players at an earlier age, better coaching. I mean, our pathways improved tremendously. And then, of course, for all the programs in Manitoba, Brandon, Winnipeg, Manitoba, we're working extremely hard to keep the top talent in the province. So when we play each other, we have great competitive matches. So U.S. college sports are kind of off the chain at the moment if you do any kind of research on what's happening there. So I think we can offer stability. Obviously, we're still going to promote education as a priority, and then you can combine athletics to get the most out of your experience at a Canadian university, specifically in Manitoba. So, I'm ecstatic with the growth of our sport. And growth is a great thing, but it also comes with its challenges. So, we're continuing to try to drive that with our junior bison program. But generally speaking, yeah, I mean, volleyball specifically, incredibly healthy in this province, and it's a really important core sport for us. So I'm just pleased that we're a part of it, and looking forward to the weekend.
Yeah, and always having been, the home base for many years, at least for the national teams as well. I always wonder if that didn't creep into the fabric of Manitobans. David and Ken, good luck to both of your schools this weekend. Have fun. Enjoy the 34th Duckworth.
We will. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being up early with us. David Larkins, Media and Operations Coordinator with Westman Athletics over at the University of Winnipeg, next door to us here at CBC. Ken Bentley up this early as well, the head coach of the University of Manitoba's women's volleyball team, also with us this morning. So the Duckworth Challenge actually begins tonight, goes through the weekend with basketball teams in action at U of M. For full schedules and tickets, you can go to westman.ca or go to bisons.ca.
The Olympics feature the best curling talent on the planet, while in Winnipeg, slightly less talented curlers gather to throw rocks on the frozen Assiniboine River. Rock the River is back February 6th to 8th in support of the Heart and Stroke Foundation. Enter a team and join CBC to experience a Canada mixed curling Olympic matchup live streamed on the frozen river. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for more.
It is so fun if you head out there to watch the teams or get a team entered. I curled last year with a CBC team and we just had a blast. So have fun, everybody, and get in there and check it out if you want to participate. Mostly cloudy, minus 22 is the time temperature right now. The time right now is 6:24 a.m. on your Thursday morning. January 29th, we're almost through with the month. Well, next, from taking on household chores to delivering packages or working in a warehouse, AI is pushing robotics into a brand new era. This is something, though, that was on full display at this month's Consumer Electronics Show. For more on how the tech is rapidly evolving, Francis Sims is with us. He covers tech issues for CBC. Hi there.
Good morning.
So when people hear humanoid robots, they think science fiction, but coming out of this, how realistic is it that we might see these kind of robots in our home or workplace soon?
Yeah, so these big tech progenitors say that by the end of this year, early next year, we'll have the ability to buy a robot, potentially for your home, for approximately the cost of a car. In fact, Elon Musk at Davos, and many people know who Elon Musk is, said that he's converting many of his factories that currently build Teslas into building his robot, which he calls his humanoid robot, which he calls Optimus. And the thinking is that if you can get a robot down to the cost of a car and it can operate in your home, then everybody will want to buy one. And the reason we're talking about it now, like we have been for a while, is because of AI. Up until now, a robot in a factory can do things like lift, move, put something in a truck, and it's all like been programmed by a software developer. But in a home, if a robot's trying to climb up the stairs, those things are designed for, spaces are designed for us. Climb up the stairs and there's dirty laundry on the stairs or kids' toys. Those real-time decisions are difficult, and it's only now with AI, like generative AI, that they're able to start to operate in those spaces. And that's why we're seeing it in a large way at CES.
So how does the industry in Canada compare when you think about the big players making these robots?
Yeah, so it's difficult. There was one company just today announced out of Toronto, Wabi, signed a deal for $1 billion investment, including an investment from Uber, to help build self-driving trucks, right? They've been deploying self-driving trucks, especially in Texas. And the thing is $1 billion is a lot of money. It's like the largest, I think, investment ever in a company in Canada. But that's the scale we're talking about with robotics. So it's fine for Elon Musk to flip the switch overnight and turn one factory into another. But there's a lot of startup companies that are coming out of, say, the University of Manitoba or Anishinaabe College. And the problem is that they can't go beyond the startup phase because you might need $100 million. And there's just not that kind of money or investors in Canada. So there are lots of great ideas in Canada and cool companies. But the bottom line is it's coming out of U.S. and China primarily where the robots are being made.
What's the impact you think this could have on the workforce and for which industries in particular?
Yeah, it's quite significant, I think. And the industries it's coming for first are the ones that are contractors. So Amazon said they said they retrained 500,000 of their workers that were doing robotic jobs. They already deployed 1 million robots as of last summer to do the other jobs. But then just a couple of days ago, they announced another 15,000 layoffs. And a lot of those layoffs are the people that they just retrained. So the bottom line is that they're coming for those types of jobs, but primarily they're the jobs that are filled by a lot of our contract employees. So you think factory workers, you think people that are like cleaning floors at airports, maybe shoveling snow, mowing grass. I mean, there's a lot of people that have full-time jobs that's great work for them, but there's a lot of people that are in those precarious jobs that don't really have stable income that will lose them. And that's part of the problem, is that's where it's starting. But eventually, when the robots come into other situations, there's a risk that those people might be impacted as well.
And I guess just last, if Canada wants to get this right moving forward, what does need to change? You talked about some of the challenges right now.
Yeah, so the government needs to invest. They needs to find a way to support our companies so they don't just get bought out, number one. I think it needs to focus on regulation because up until last year, for example, drones were not allowed to fly beyond line of sight in Canada. And that was a problem because, there were a lot of companies that had ideas about delivering medicines to remote communities. And so you could only fly it as far as you could see it. That's changed, but it took a long time. So regulation is the second thing. And the third thing is just ensuring we have a plan to support the skilled workers that might be displaced by this transition.
All right, Francis, thanks for your time as always.
Yeah, thanks so much.
That is our technology columnist on CBC, Francis Sims, Associate Dean of the Faculty of Applied Sciences and Technology at Humber Polytechnic. I'm Marcy Marcusa. We're live in downtown Winnipeg. How you doing this morning, everyone? We're getting through January. I promise it'll be over at some point. It is January 29th, Thursday morning. Thanks for being with us. It is in Winnipeg going to be right around minus 17 today. We'll have our look at your regional forecast coming up after your news. Also, we have a final few letters to read. Yesterday, you were writing Dear January letters, farewell letters, breakup letters. Got lots of really kind of fun ones. So we'll read a few more of those after the news. In addition, we have business news coming up. Christely Ramlakan is going to be joining us to talk about how news could be returning to Facebook and Instagram in Canada. You might know that now when we try to post news links, or maybe if you're looking for news, you aren't actually able to get a lot of the sources on Facebook because it blocks the reposting. In addition, a shakeup at Tesla is happening, and there's a new warning about artificial intelligence, speaking of our conversation we just had with Francis. So that's all still ahead with Crystal. Right now, though, your news from Manitoba.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it's minus 22. Clearing through the day today, a high of minus 17. Still, though, a risk of frostbite because we'll have a bit of a wind at 15 kilometers an hour today. A new city pilot project is exploring working with Manitoba Housing and nonprofits to deal with derelict and vacant properties. The pilot could see some city-owned lots turned into affordable housing meant for home ownership. CBC's Rosanna Hempel reports.
At Purpose Construction, people facing barriers to employment learn to build homes from start to finish. Executive Director Sherry Bailey says trainees get paid classroom and on-the-job training. Ricky Corshane Cameron experienced addictions and homelessness before landing at Purpose Construction.
I'm happy to say that I'm actively back with my family now.
The nonprofit could be part of a new city pilot that'll see some derelict and vacant properties owned by the city developed into affordable housing. The program would transfer lots to Manitoba Housing, which would work with social enterprises to build homes and sell to people leaving social housing. City officials are optimistic. Purpose Construction has already built 3 houses on city lots. 2 have been sold to first-time homebuyers. The pilot will begin in the William White area and could expand to other neighborhoods. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The head of a construction association says he is sad a major trade college is closing. The Manitoba Institute of Trades and Technology is shutting its doors after this school year. It blames a drop in foreign student enrollment. Chris Lawrence at the Manitoba Heavy Construction Association is surprised the provincial government's allowing the school to close.
Within the last day or so, the province was talking about how important it is to provide education and training for people who want to pursue careers in the construction industry. industry. And then literally a day or two after, the very institution that is built around that mandate is allowed to close.
Provincial Minister of Advanced Education and Training, Renee Cable, says there's no way to backfill a 61% drop in enrollment. A Winnipeg City Councillor wants the province, city, and school divisions to share the costs of building and maintaining play structures. St. Vital Councillor Brian Mays spent the last 10 days meeting with education stakeholders. In a newly released report, Mays says the model of parent councils being asked to raise money for projects is outdated and needs to be revamped.
There's a place here for all of us to shoulder some responsibility and put some money toward these play structures.
Mays favors an approach used in Brandon where the city and local school division both contribute $50,000 towards play structures. And in some, you can add provincial funding like Saskatchewan does. And Mays says then you have a perfect formula for providing children a chance to have fun between classes. As crucial free trade negotiations are rapidly approaching, the Prime Minister and Premiers meet today to talk strategy and present a united front. All 13 premiers met in Ottawa yesterday ahead of their meeting with Prime Minister Mark Carney today. South of the border, Democrats in the Senate have issued a list of demands designed to rein in the actions of ICE agents, which they say must be attached to a funding bill for the Department of Homeland Security. They include prohibition of federal agents wearing masks and an end to roving patrols instead requiring warrants for arrests, those warrants to be issued by a judge. The move follows the killings of 2 American citizens in Minneapolis during the Trump administration's immigration crackdown. You can hear more on these stories and other national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. A Winnipeg doctor has been reprimanded for failing to conduct physical exams of 3 patients, refusing to prescribe meds for a 4th, and demanding a 5th patient bring their mother to a visit even though the patient was an adult. The College of Physicians and Surgeons of Manitoba is requiring Dr. Nazman Boyan to practice medicine with a monitor. She pleaded guilty to 11 charges from the college. Those charges include misleading the college in its investigation. Brandon police are looking to get body-worn cameras on some officers as soon as April. The technology is part of the force's multi-year digital evidence management system improvements. The project would cost around $440,000 in the 2026 budget. Brandon's mayor, Jeff Fawcett, says it reflects the needs of a growing city, especially when it comes to keeping up with technology.
It keeps our staff safe and makes sure they're following what they're doing, but also keeps people that are just anybody that they're involved with. I think gives them that sense of, proper procedures going to be followed. I don't see a lot of downside.
This year, Brandon police are asking for around $14 million in the budget, with the majority of the funding being used for staffing. You can find the local news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Heather Wells.
Thank you.
Well, before we get into our regional forecast, let's finish off something that you started yesterday. It is January 29th. Last week, we're almost done this very, very long month. And we asked you to say farewell to January with letters. Dear Jan letters. Frank Stecky says, Dear January, it's not you, it's me. I hope we can stay friends. You're a great month, and someone else will be lucky to find you next year. Brian Jameson says, Hi, Jan. Well, you were your typical chilly self this year, but now that you're departing, don't let the door smack your butt on the way out, and we'll see you in another 11 months. Adios, Ice Queen. Don Pauls says, Dear January, you are the one relative that we say, you should stay with us next time you're in town. And they take us seriously. Dorothy Doby wrote in, Dear Jan, you're a month, not a man. Regardless of that, you're not part of my plan. Beautiful Feb brings warm hearts and flowers and stays above 0 for hours and hours. And finally, Tracy Drexler says she just can't do the negative, so we'll end with something positive. Dear February, you are the month of love, and the world needs more love right now. If you aren't better, at least you'll be shorter. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Thanks to everybody who got creative with us and wrote Dear January letters. We'll leave it at that and get into the forecast now. Abby, what are we going to get today?
Dear January, the province is waking up to another frigid day. We're going to be dealing.
I love that you got last word to Abby for the letter.
We're waking up to another frigid day. A risk of frostbite in play across most of the regions this morning. Winnipeg right now, we're seeing temperatures hover between a minus 22 and minus 26 under cloudy conditions. We will see the morning temperatures for the city hold steady around this temperature before reaching minus 17 later today. Though the winds remain light, we'll see the morning wind chills around minus 35, which means this is going to be posing more like a risk of frostbite before we see some clear skies later this afternoon. For the Pembina Valley region, we're looking at temperatures hover around minus 23, minus 24, depending on where you are, from Morden, Winkler, Altoona, all the way down to Port La Prairie this morning, where we're seeing temperatures around minus 24. For Brandon, we're looking at temperatures around minus 30 at this time. This will transition to a high of minus 18 later in the day, though with the wind chill factored in, it's going to feel close to minus 38. Similar conditions we're seeing in the Parkland region. Temperatures around Dauphin, we're looking at minus 30 at this time. It's clear. You warm up to minus 18. However, you'll be dealing with wind chills near minus 39 this morning, so it's keeping things still a bit on that dangerous side. For Gimli, we're looking at minus 20, mostly cloudy. You're reaching a high of minus 17. Sunshine is going to be arriving sometime around your lunch break. Wind chill drops to minus 36, so you need to take care if you're out and about. For the northern part of the province, we're seeing temperatures hover between minus 20 and minus 25, depending on where you are. For regions around the Par, Flim Flim, we're looking at temperatures around minus 21, minus 22s at this time. Most of the regions there will see temperatures around minus 17, though with the wind chill factored in, it's going to feel close to minus 30. Then we go towards Thompson and Gillam, where we're seeing temperatures hover between minus 26 and Thompson, Gillam around minus 22, and Lynn Lake also around minus 22 this morning. Sorry, Gillam is around minus 32 this morning, so you need to take it easy. Wind chill actually feels close to minus 34 for that part of the province, while for Churchill, we see ice crystals, clear conditions there, minus 22 at this time. Sunshine on its way. You warm up to minus 19, though the wind chill is going to make it feel like minus 32. So it's still more like a cold morning across board. We're still seeing temperatures within those chilly conditions. Winnipeg right now, we're looking at 26, minus 25, depending on where you are.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
How's your run in, Corey?
Chilly. Yeah, it hurt a little bit. Yeah, but
how's the footing under? Slippery?
A little slippery still as well. You're kind of you can shuffle, but so heads up there on those sidewalks. Other than that, though, it's been a quiet commute that I've heard of. But if you're walking your bike and you're driving, you see something, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
All right, Corey Funk, Abby Adiyemi, with what you need to know to get to work today or get into your day. Chrisley Ramlakan is here now to tee up business news for us. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So, could news be returning to Facebook and Instagram in this country?
Well, the federal government says seeing online news return to those social media sites is part of an ongoing conversation that Canada is having with Meta, who is their owner, as the review of the Canada-US-Mexico agreement nears. So the press secretary for Culture Minister Mark Miller says the door has always been open on the government side and that it has been having regular discussions with the platforms since the Online News Act was developed and became law in 2023. So just a little reminder for some people, the Act requires tech giants to pay media outlets for news content they share. And Google continued to share Canadian news online and agreed to pay news companies $100 million annually. Meta decided to take another route and removed all news from its platforms. Now, U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer says the Online News Act is a trade irritant because he says it treats U.S. companies unfairly. And Greer has said the review of CUSMA will depend on the successful resolution of these kinds of issues. So still just a possibility right now.
Now, we just had our tech columnist on talking about these humanoid robots. And so you're going to still talk about them more, but you're through a business lens. This is all around the shakeup at Tesla.
Yes, that's right. So Tesla is pulling the plug on some of its electric cars, the Model S and the Model X, and instead will use the factory space to build those humanoid robots. So the change comes as the company just posted another quarter of declining profits and car sales. And CEO Elon Musk predicts the company's Cybercab, which is a self-driving robotaxi, will eventually sell more than all of Tesla's other vehicles combined. But you know that Tesla's robotaxi service is still not in wide operation. And we know the brand's reputation took a hit last year after backlash to Musk's political activities and his close relationship with President Donald Trump. And Tesla also faces increased competition. Last year, it lost its title of the world's largest electric vehicle maker to Chinese automaker BYD. And the company also disclosed yesterday for the first time that Tesla has invested $2 billion into XAI, which owns social media platform X. And guess what? Yeah, the CEO of Tesla, Elon Musk, also owns that AI company, XAI, and of course, the social media platform, X.
All of it. Yeah, one person. Staying on AI, there's a new warning about it as well.
Yes, that's right. So the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity says criminals who hold data for ransom are using artificial intelligence tools that make it easier to target victims. The center's latest report says the ransomware threat in Canada continues to increase and evolve quickly as malicious actors adopt sophisticated tactics. The center says cyber criminals have started using AI to spot vulnerabilities, develop malware, generate deepfake images, and automate negotiations with victims. So, you know what it's like to chat with an AI chatbot when you're talking to a company, and now, you know, these cyber criminals are using AI to communicate with you to try to, get money from you. Now, AI helps these criminals overcome technical barriers, making it easier to target victims and demand payment, often in the form of cryptocurrency. And numerous organizations, including businesses, hospitals, and universities, have been held digitally hostage by cyber criminals who electronically lock private data and then demand payment. And the report says ransomware is one of the most disruptive, costly, and persistent challenges facing organizations of every size. And the center says basic digital hygiene practices, such as regularly updating software, implementing multi-factor authentication, backing up data, and being cautious about those phishing attempts can help protect against cyber threats.
All right, Crystal Lee, thank you.
Thanks, Marcy.
With business news, that's Crystal Lee Ramlican, and she was talking at the end there about a form of extortion. Still ahead on our show this morning after 7 o'clock. We are going to be talking more about a case that has been developing this week in Winnipeg after a series of extortion cases involving local businesses, and these are with involving arson, not AI. But Winnipeg police have charged 5 people. They are still looking for more of those people that are wanted, though. We're going to hear from a criminologist who talks about how what happened in Winnipeg is part of a larger pattern across Canada. So that is coming up after 7 o'clock. With tensions continuing between Canada and the United States, a Canadian senator has proposed creating our own version of the Nexus Pass, one that's not reliant on the Americans. Paula Simons has tabled a motion that, if passed, would call on the federal government to create its own trusted traveller program for domestic use. And the motion has the support of the Canadian Airports Council as well. The CBC's Rebecca Zandbergen spoke with Senator Paula Simons about it.
Well, most sovereign nations that have, a large aviation industry have some kind of sovereign trusted traveler program, a verified traveler program for frequent flyers who understand the airport protocols, have been pre-screened to be approved by security, and then they have the privilege to go through the line faster. And Canada has a system instead where we have piggybacked onto the Nexus program and used it as a kind of a proxy. There was a time, I believe, before I became a senator and before I was flying so much, where there was some kind of Canadian pass. I think it was called the CAN Pass. But we eliminated that in 2018. So right now, we do have a line, and it is for members of the military, members of the RCMP, and some police forces. and Nexus card holders to go through the good line. And everybody else stands in the less good line. So this doesn't replace a Nexus card. My idea is to have a card for Canadians traveling through Canadian airports. Your destination doesn't make a difference because the security gate is agnostic. When you show up at security, security doesn't care where you're going. So the idea would be that this would be a card that would be used primarily for travel within Canada, but it could be used to travel anywhere where you're going through airport security. What it doesn't do is expedite if you arrive in another country. It doesn't expedite your going through customs in London or Paris or Washington, but it would expedite getting into the airport.
If it is something that, we should all believe is a great thing that you're pitching here to us, why did we get rid of the Canada Pass in the first place, the one that allowed us to do all of what you're describing?
I have no idea. I think people felt, well, if you're applying for a Nexus card anyway, and the Nexus card requires you to have the security screening from Canada and the United States, why create a second system?
But wouldn't that still be the case?
Card. Well, as I say, it doesn't work very well if you're trans. It works not very well if you're Francophone, unilingual Francophone. It works not very well if you are concerned that Homeland Security may go through your social media posts and say, what did you post about Minneapolis? What did you post about Grok? Maybe we don't want you in the United States. We are contracting out to a regime that is not particularly friendly to Canada's sense of national sovereignty and which has developed over the last 10 months a pretty grim reputation for respecting civil rights, where the Trump government has already said that it's going to start refusing visas to anybody who ever worked in data verification. I think if we want to be an independent sovereign country, asking the United States, a government whose interests are not currently in alignment with ours, to run our domestic airport security program doesn't make any sense.
That was Canadian Senator Paula Simons in conversation with CBC's Rebecca Zandberg. And the Parliamentary Budget Office estimates that if the pass fee was $50, the program would cost taxpayers about $7 million over 5 years. Simons argues it would break even if it was priced slightly higher. And that motion around the new pass, just for Canadians, so you don't have to go through Nexus, is expected to be debated over the next couple of months. And if you are someone that uses Nexus and would like to see a Canadian version return around this, give us a call. Love to hear from you if you're crossing at Emerson, if part of your work takes you to the States. Maybe you go frequently or for another reason. 204-788-3205.
Local news is in decline across Canada, and this is bad news for all of us. With less local news, noise, rumors, and misinformation fill the void, and it gets harder to separate truth from fiction. That's why CBC News is putting more journalists in more places across Canada, reporting on the ground from where you live, telling the stories that matter to all of us. Because local news is big news. Choose news, not noise. CBC News.
Well, you are with Information Radio this morning. We are relentlessly local. And to that end, let's talk about what our Premier had to say yesterday. Premier Wab Kinew from Manitoba was on The Current, and I'm going to read a quote here. Here's part of what he had to say. We're about to do an interview about trade and the Premier's interprovincial trade. He said, part of what he said was, quote, "We're heading into the CUSMA review. We want our trading relationship with Minnesota and other states to be strong for manufacturing, and we have Manitoba companies with a presence in many of our neighboring areas and states to the south as well. So we have to find a way to strengthen trade and maintain the ability to do business while we still uphold our morals and maintain our ability to look ourselves in the mirror," end quote. So that is Manitoba's Premier, Wab Kinew, weighing in on The Current on CBC yesterday, talking about our relationship with the states as CUSMA gets ready for a review. Now, in case you're following the ball here, when we had tariffs last year, Manitoba was we were in a safer position. You know, we don't have big steel, big auto here. We do have some companies affected. But CUSMA is a big deal for Manitoba. So this year, we're leaning into this a lot. The Premiers, meantime, will meet with Prime Minister Mark Carney in Ottawa for 2 days. That does start officially today. They will talk trade and economy. They're watching to see if the Team Canada approach is going to work here. Everyone coming together despite provincial differences. And it comes ahead of the Canadian-United States-Mexico Agreement, which I've been talking about. That's what CUSMA stands for. And that is up for review in the summer. So Nelson Wiseman's here to talk about the meeting with the premiers. He's a political scientist at the University of Toronto. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
So while I was just talking about Premier Wab Kinew, why don't we go straight there? What are the conversations here that are going to concern the prairie provinces like ours?
Well, the different prairie provinces have different interests. I think for Manitoba, priority has been eliminating the pork tariffs, but that's that China has imposed because pork is an important industry agriculturally in Manitoba, and also in terms of infrastructure, the expanding the port capacity at Churchill and working on the rail line that goes there because Churchill is an Arctic outlet, at least for about 4 months of the year when the ice lifts. So but overall, Canada, every province has an interest in good trade relations with the United States because 75% of Canada's exports go to the United States. So that's getting the attention of this meeting, whereas most First Ministers' meetings in the past have often focused on social issues, and the provinces like getting together at First Ministers' meetings like that because they can gang up on the federal government and demand more transfers for things like health, education, welfare programs that the provinces are responsible for delivering. But when it comes to trade, that's under international trade, that's under federal jurisdiction. So they all have a vital interest. Their economies are dependent. It doesn't matter what province you're in. Wab Kinew makes the point. Manitoba manufacturing and other products, agricultural products, there's an outlet for them right now into the United States. Is that going to continue? And what will the conditions be? So that's what's coming up. And the American administration right now is very unpredictable. So what's been going on is that Carney's been cutting a path around the world. I don't think there's been a prime minister in history that's ever taken so many foreign trips in his first year in office, or actually in any year.
Well, we're in unprecedented times with our relationship with the state, so those two things probably work together, of course. I want to ask about Carney having a meeting ahead of this with Premier Doug Ford. Why would he have seen that as necessary before meeting with all of the premiers?
Not only did he just meet with Ford, yesterday he also he had a meeting with the premiers of BC and Alberta. The reason he met with Ford is because as Carney's trip was approaching to China, and even after the trip, Ford had been sniping at Carney because the auto industry is located here in Ontario, and Ford did not want Chinese-made EVs coming into Canada because he saw that as a threat to auto workers and the auto manufacturing industry here in Ontario. So Carney met with him, and it's interesting that after the meeting was over, Ford came out and said he thought Carney was great. They've had very good relations. Carney has stayed, actually, at Ford's cottage overnight in the earlier or last year. And what I think Carney did is say, yes, there will be some EVs coming from China, but China may also create production facilities. And if that happens, it'll happen in Ontario.
So
benefit Ontario.
So he's doing pre-meetings to kind of settle some of the things so they don't maybe overtake all the conversation. I mean, BC and Alberta could be about sovereignty or pipelines. I want to ask in our last 30 seconds here about Quebec, because what are their list of issues they're going to raise with the PM?
Well, Quebec's interest is more control over immigration. But I don't expect to hear much from Quebec because basically, although the premier is going to be there, he has announced that he's resigning. So within a few months, we're going to have a new premier of Quebec. And then within a few months after that, we're going to probably have a new government in Quebec. And it looks right now, but things could change, it's going to be a Parti Québécois government. So then the issue will come up about another referendum in Quebec.
Yeah, we'll be back to the early 90s. All right. Thank you, Nelson. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Marcy.
We'll see what all the premiers discuss and what they share with us as well later today when that 2-day meeting begins with the Prime Minister. Nelson Wiseman teeing it up for us, Professor Emeritus in Political Science over at the University of Toronto. 3 minutes to 7 o'clock, still ahead.
We normally do not see extended campaigns of extortion. Usually what happens is there's a campaign of extortion until either the heat gets too high from the police and people back off because they're worried about getting caught, or else they succeed, they get the payoff, and then they back away anyway.
That's a criminologist reacting to a series of extortion cases against local businesses here in Winnipeg. That story's been developing in the news this week. But we have extortion issues in cities across Canada, and he says some of what's happening here is connected. We're going to hear more on how this fits into a growing national problem after 7 o'clock. Also, another chance for you to win this great CBC Winnipeg prize pack to see WSO performing, connected to CBC's Murdoch Mysteries. Great night out, a limo, some food. So stay tuned. We'll give you another chance to win. The clue coming up at 7:40. And how do you choose the best winter gear when you're facing extreme weather like we have? We'll have a bit of a fun look at that this hour as well. Heather Wells is in now with headlines.
Good morning. Well, the City of Winnipeg is launching a pilot project to develop certain derelict and vacant properties into affordable housing meant for home ownership. The city's manager of strategic planning says the program would see some city-owned lots transferred to Manitoba Housing, and he is optimistic about this pilot, in part because the city's already worked with social enterprises. And the Brandon Police Service is preparing to spend nearly $500,000 on technology upgrades this year, including body-worn cameras. We'll hear more in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
You are with CBC's Information Radio. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team here at the show. It is mostly cloudy, minus 22 right now. Our high today, minus 17. It's going to be cloudy for the morning, but clearing this afternoon. Remember, with wind chill, it'll feel more like minus 35. Your morning run, walk, or roll is pretty good, actually. We don't have any reports of any problems across Manitoba right now. Call us if you do have something on the commute that's an issue. Corey will pick it up, 788-3093, and then report on the air and we'll share. So let us know. Right now, it's time for World Report, 1 minute to 7.
Today on The Current.
It'd be really boring without it. There wouldn't be much to do.
Canada is looking at a social media ban for kids under 14, similar to what Australia brought in last month. We'll hear how that ban is going in Australia and from experts who are torn on whether this is the most effective tool. That's coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. A remote First Nation in Quebec is in lockdown over a shooting. The chief of the Cree Nation of Mistissini says there are multiple fatalities. All residents are being told to stay in their homes and keep doors and windows locked. Schools, offices, and all community buildings are closed. And travel in and out of the community is restricted. Further details of the incident are not yet known. The Cree Nation of Mistissini is a community of about 4,200 people. It is in the James Bay region, 600 kilometers north of Quebec City. It's down to business today for the Prime Minister and Premiers. Mark Carney hosted First Ministers for dinner last night at his Harrington Lake retreat, and later this morning their summit begins in Ottawa. Janice McGregor is in our Parliamentary Bureau. And Janice, there are many topics on the agenda, but economic trade issues will dominate. What can you tell us?
Well, they don't lead negotiations. Provincial premiers are important players, and not just preparations for the review of the North American Trade Agreement, but also the ongoing push to diversify Canada's trade. BC Premier David Eby, for example, recently back from his own trade mission in India. And provinces have their own people in Washington, too, preparing for what Eby acknowledged yesterday is probably going to be a pretty rough ride between now and the July 1st deadline for renewing CUSMA.
Really impossible to know.
where the Americans are at, what their plans are, what they hope to get out of this. This is supposed to be a review, not a renegotiation.
Carney needs to make sure all the premiers are on board. Ontario Premier Doug Ford yesterday said Team Canada's all on the same page, but then in the next breath pitched his idea of building a Fortress Can-Am around manufacturing in his province. And that's exactly the kind of comment that risks offending Mexican officials, just as Dominic LeBlanc is preparing to lead a trade mission there next month.
Janice, we've seen the Trump administration jump onto unity issues in Alberta, suggesting that there was a natural fit within the U.S. instead. What are the premiers saying about that?
Yeah, perhaps precisely because they know that Americans exploit these issues to get an upper hand. Even Western premiers known to have their differences yesterday sounded quite cordial and constructive. And several also said they were proud of the speech that Mark Carney gave in Davos, including Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston.
I was impressed by the speech, and I was proud of the speech. And I think some of the things that are happening and some of the things we're seeing said as a result of that are proving that the speech was necessary.
It was the second speech, though, that Carney delivered last week that turned out to be an own goal for Team Canada. The Prime Minister's telling of how English and French came together in the founding of Canada, that's been characterized as the opening shot in the next referendum battle in Quebec. Fresh ammunition for the Parti Québécois.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Britain's Prime Minister is following Canada's lead and paying a visit to China. Earlier this month, Mark Carney was in Beijing to improve trade relations. As Crystal Gomansing reports, Keir Starmer has similar hopes for the UK.
Seated across from China's Xi Jinping, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer took notes as Xi welcomed the British delegation. A large, heavily polished U-shaped table separated the two sides seeking a closer relationship.
We had a very good, productive session with real concrete outcomes, and that's in the national interest because, of course, there are huge opportunities here.
Starmer says during the 80-minute summit with Xi, they made progress on whiskey tariffs, discussed how to stop the shipment of Chinese small boat engine parts being used by smugglers to illegally shuttle people across the English Channel, and visa-free travel.
The relationship is in a good place, a strong place.
Starmer's visit comes on the heels of similar economic-based bridges extended by Canada, Finland, and France, despite the West having major concerns with China on espionage and human rights. Shanshan Mei is a political scientist with the Rand Corporation, a U.S. think tank and public policy consulting firm.
Everyone just understands we have to figure out a way to do business with China, understand China, and for our own interest.
Shanshan Mei says it's not an abrupt shift, at least not for China, that the Chinese Communist Party and its leader have long had a view that it needs Europe and others to keep growing its export-based economy. Crystal Gomansing, CBC News, London.
And Keir Starmer is already seeing some results from this visit. British drug maker AstraZeneca is announcing an investment in China. The company says it will invest $15 billion over the next 4 years. Plans include expanding medicines manufacturing along with research and development. Questions are being raised in Ottawa on whether the Coast Guard should be armed. Legislation giving the civilian agency more power to work underneath the military is now before the Senate. Canada is the only Arctic nation that has not armed its Coast Guard. Murray Brewster has the story.
What steps will be required and equipment given to the Coast Guard to be able to defend itself while it's conducting these security patrols?
It's a question that's preoccupied federal conservatives, such as MP Jeff Kibble, for months. And for months, this has been the answer from Coast Guard Commissioner Mario Pelletier.
Right now, we're not looking at defending because we're not looking at being in a theater where there'd be confrontation. Right now, we're looking at occupying a space that can be occupied and where we can collect information and pass it on to our colleagues at DND.
But how can they do that without becoming a target? Rob Hubert is a defense expert.
If we're going into this much more dangerous environment that I think we are, then it behooves us to give the Coast Guard greater self-defense capabilities.
But arming the Coast Guard is not something Canada has done since the Second World War. Vice Admiral Angus Topshee is commander of the Canadian Navy, who says in war, all bets are off. But short of that,
I don't see any real reason to go through the thing of fundamentally changing the character of the Coast Guard and arming it unless there's a compelling reason to do so.
Canada is the only Arctic country that does not have an armed Coast Guard in one form or another. Topshee says there are ways to quickly beef up defenses on those ships if necessary. Legislation giving the Coast Guard more surveillance and intelligence sharing powers is expected to become law later this winter or in the spring. Murray Brewster, CBC News, Ottawa.
There will be that time. No more weeping.
Singing and grieving in Minneapolis last night, mourners gathered to remember Alex Preddy. ICE agents shot and killed the 37-year-old ICU nurse over the weekend. People at the vigil cried and danced together. They are demanding accountability for Preddy's death and the death of Renee Good. Good was the other U.S. citizen shot and killed by ICE agents in the city. Tension is high in Minneapolis, and later this hour, Tom Homan will speak to media in the city for the first time. He's the White House border czar overseeing that operation in Minneapolis. CBC News has learned Ryan Wedding sought court protection against an arrest warrant in Mexico a year ago. Court files suggest the fugitive feared law enforcement was moving in on him. Wedding is a former Canadian Olympian and alleged drug lord. He was arrested last week and sent to the U.S. to face charges. Thomas Daigle has the details.
In February 2025, Mexican court records obtained by CBC News show Ryan Wedding sought an injunction to prevent authorities from carrying out a warrant for his arrest and extradition. While the FBI was leading an international manhunt for him, Wedding told the court he was living at an address in the western Sinaloa state.
If I were to speculate, I would say he was not living at that address.
Wedding made the statement under oath, but cartel expert Nathan Jones says don't believe all of it.
Many Mexican well-known narcos have used this mechanism to essentially quash a case against them, an indictment.
The Ontario-born Wedding was arrested last week after spending 10 years on the run. He's pleaded not guilty to U.S. charges including murder, drug trafficking, and money laundering.
He was apprehended. He did not surrender.
Wedding's attorney, Anthony Colombo, denies the FBI's claim that Wedding spent the past decade in hiding.
Hiding out and living somewhere are two different things. I would characterize it as living. The government can characterize it their way.
It's not clear how long authorities knew of Wedding's true whereabouts before he wound up in U.S. custody and on a flight out of Mexico. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, Toronto.
And recapping our top story, the Cree Nation of Mistissini in central Quebec is in lockdown over a shooting. The chief says there are multiple fatalities. All residents are being told to stay indoors with windows and doors locked. Schools, offices, and community buildings are closed. Travel in and out of the community is restricted. There is more on our main page at cbcnews.ca. You can follow the story there. That is World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
And if that develops, we'll certainly bring you the latest. Thanks for joining us. We are in Manitoba, live in Winnipeg at our CBC studios. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. It is going to be, cloudy to start. Clear late this afternoon, another cold one as we click through the last week of January here. Thanks for being with us in the morning show. This hour in the show, the City of Winnipeg is launching a pilot project. You could see certain derelict and vacant properties developed into affordable housing. The CBC's Rosanna Hempel will be in with a full report coming up at 10 to 8 this morning to talk about how social enterprises are going to be involved. So we'll learn more about the approach. Also, to a serious story in a moment here. After a series of extortion cases that you may have heard about in the news this week involving local businesses in Winnipeg, police here have charged 5 people. They are still looking for more. Some of these people are wanted. But we're going to hear from a criminologist who talks about how this fits into a larger pattern of extortions across Canada. So stay tuned for that interview. Really interesting, important information in it. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells for other stories to hear how they're developing. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, the head of a construction association says he is sad a major trade college is closing. The Manitoba Institute of Trades and Technology is shutting its doors after this school year, blaming a drop in foreign student enrollment. Chris Lawrence at the Manitoba Heavy Construction Association is surprised the province is allowing that school to close. He says in the last couple of days, the province has been talking up the importance of training. A new report from a Winnipeg city councillor calls for more government funding for school playground equipment. St. Vital councillor Brian Mays has released this report calling for a new model of funding for school play structures. He says they shouldn't be the subject of bake sales by parent councils. We'll hear more about that in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Now into the weather we go with Abby Adiemi.
Yeah, Marcy, temperatures remaining well below freezing and clear conditions across the province. But for Winnipeg right now, we're looking at temperatures sitting between minus 21 and minus 23, mostly cloudy at the Forks. We're tracking light snow reported at the airport this morning. Temperatures will stay steady between minus 25 and minus 19 for the city, eventually reaching a sunny high of minus 17 later with a light breeze. But just be careful out there, as a biting wind chill of minus 35 this morning brings a risk of frostbite with that. And then some clear skies tonight. We see the mercury drop to about minus 30 overnight, and the wind chill close to minus 40. Up north, frigid also. We're seeing some regions close to minus 28 already. To the Lake, we're tracking minus 23 there. Thompson, minus 28 at this time. So take it easy. Winnipeg, we're looking at minus 23, minus 24.
All right, let's find out about the commute with Corey Funk.
Been very quiet so far. Haven't heard of any major issues out there. In fact, actually, the only call I've got is from Dan on a bike, who said it's been great, not only biking on the Southwest Rapid Transit for him, but also on the River Trail as well. So thanks for that call, Dan. If you do see something going on, though, if you're walking, you're biking, you're driving, you see something slippery.
Go ahead, but I have one more thing to add.
Yes. What do you want to add before I give the number?
No, give the number.
204-788-3093.
What I want to add is Dan on a bike should come to our remote.
He should.
We are planning next month. Corey and I just started talking about this, and we're trying to figure out where we're going to be live. But we're going to be live somewhere outside in Winnipeg. But the focus is going to be actually on active commuting in the winter. So we've got to totally meet Dan on a bike.
We do. I know. I need to put a face to a name.
I also know there's people who ski the River Trail for work. I know there's people that skate. So we're looking for you.
Yeah.
So if that's you and you're listening, or if you know these people in Winnipeg that actively, run or out there, active transportation during the winter, let us know who they are so you can write to us.
Yeah, email me directly. Why not?
Great.
Corey.funk@cbc.ca. That's CORY.FUNK@cbc.ca.
Time right now, 7:14. Well, 5 people face charges for allegedly burning buildings and extorting Winnipeg businesses for protection from arson. So in case you missed this story developing this week in our city, this is what Inspector Jennifer McKinnon from the Winnipeg Police Major Crimes Unit had to say.
In July 2025, the Major Crimes Unit became aware of ongoing incidents involving extortion, arsons, and theft, specifically targeting businesses in our city. These locations included a number of convenience stores and a warehouse that was unoccupied at the time of the occurrence. During this investigation, it was learned that a group of individuals, some from Winnipeg and others from Eastern Canada, were sent to threaten and extort local business owners using arson as a weapon.
So that was Inspector Jennifer McKinnon. The businesses targeted were on Selkirk Avenue, Spruce Street, Main Street, and Portage Avenue. Winnipeg is not the only city where this is happening. A number of suspected extortion cases were reported in British Columbia and in Ontario this month. Wade Deisman is with us, criminologist at the University of Fraser Valley in BC. He's been following these cases and joins us via Zoom. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
Thank you for being here. So what stood out to you about the Winnipeg extortion cases compared to what you've been hearing in other cities?
Well, in the context of both Surrey and Abbotsford, we've seen a lot of these extortion cases too. Mostly they involve threats and shooting, and we haven't had very much in the way of arson. So this seems to be an escalation in the tactics. The other key thing that's been disclosed in the investigation is that this is a coordinated campaign in the Winnipeg context that stretches all the way back to Ontario and possibly Quebec. And I think that that's significant too, that the individuals were sent to Winnipeg is very significant as well. It points to the fact that this is a pan-Canadian problem we're witnessing here.
When you talk about the nature of the threats, obviously the threat of arson, the threat of weapons, what other tactics are these people using to extort the businesses in this country?
Well, they're actually threatening individuals' own safety. So in the Surrey context, we've seen messages communicated to the targets saying, we know where you are, we know who your family is, we know where your family is back home in the Punjab. And they're in danger, and there will be consequences if you don't pay. So it's a direct threat to people's physical safety.
And so this is obviously this is where the business owners would come from cultural communities where they would have family in other places. What's your sense about, I mean, you talked about in Winnipeg coordination. So what's your sensibility in the country about, is any of this random?
Well, there is a debate going on right now. It doesn't fit the usual pattern of extortion in the sense that extortion crime typically will peter out once the authorities are highly focused on it and once there is an advanced campaign. So in the context of BC, we've seen a provincial task force formed, but rather than extortion rates falling as a result of that, they've actually increased. So just in the first 20 days of January, we had 36 cases. So when we see behavior like that in terms of patterns of criminality, we impute a secondary cause. And in this case, the debate is about whether and to what extent the Bishnoi gang is involved and how they're involved and whether that's connected with the Indian nation state and a longstanding kind of feud about the Khalistani situation. So the Khalistani struggle for an independent state in the Punjab has played out in Canada before, and some recent revelations from the RCMP's intelligence suggest that the Indian state may be supporting the Bishnoi gang by proxy.
How do the types of the targeted Winnipeg businesses targeted in Winnipeg compare to what we're seeing nationally? And does that tie into what you're talking about what investigators at least are feeling this is about?
Yeah, it really does tie in nationally to that pattern, because what we're seeing is a pattern of mom and pop shops, really, folks who have made their own kind of business and their own living. And so they're kind of low-hanging fruit in the sense that they're insulated, they're without a kind of larger network of support. It's not the large businesses we're seeing targeted. And it's this kind of tactics, these fly-by-night tactics for the most part, that really, I think, are aimed to kind of cow the community into submission so that people start to pay and so that it starts to become unquestioned.
The mayor of Surrey was recently calling on Ottawa to declare a national emergency around this and appoint an extortion commissioner at the federal level. What are your thoughts on the call for that?
Yeah, I think now that we're seeing that this is a national pattern that's emerged and that it's tremendously tenacious in terms of its persistence, I think one of the key challenges in this case is coordinating the different levels of government, coordinating intelligence coming in, coordinating policing operations, coordinating with the Department of Justice, coordinating with public safety and immigration and refugee. That whole element adds a very difficult dimension, and that's why there's been this call for a czar, really, or a commissioner on extortion to kind of expedite the process of organizing to oppose this. It really does look like something that requires a federal level of intervention given the complexity of the issues.
Here in Manitoba, when it comes to how to combat this, in December there was a $2,500 rebate to help small businesses enhance surveillance systems, motion sensor lighting, and other deterrents. But that was more about overall security for businesses combating crime. I wonder if a business owner is being extorted, what do we understand about what's effective to try and stay safe?
Mm-hmm. Well, we do know that those target hardening measures, that's what we call them, can be effective in creating a kind of a sense of deterrence, but there has to be a clear consequence associated with it. So it's no good, for example, if the perpetrators are caught on video, the video is turned over to the police, but no consequences arise, as in they're never arrested, they're never apprehended, they're never prosecuted. So in and of itself, that's not going to be a panacea. If it's part of a kind of broader kind of crime prevention strategy and deterrence strategy, then it will work. And what we know from the literature is that the community has to be, intricately involved in the process of strengthening and resisting kind of these extortion threats. So campaigns like "We Are Not Afraid" are the kinds of initiatives that ultimately result in the community fighting back.
What happens if that doesn't happen? Do individual businesses then, become afraid given what's at stake here and isolate?
Yeah, well, I'm sorry to say that oftentimes what happens is that they become accustomed to paying. And we've had this in Surrey and in Abbotsford, reports of this, that some business owners are simply paying and then things go quiet for them. It gets factored into their cost of doing business. And then as a consequence, what we have is a layer of organized crime that kind of sits on top of businesses and takes its cut.
When you use the word community, what community has to be involved? The business community, the specific cultural community? Should that be the case? If you're looking at different individual businesses, if there's a tie there, or the overall community in the city?
Yeah, I think we have to layer in all of those different kinds of communities. Certainly the business community. So we've seen businesses against extortion, those kinds of things. I think in the context of Abbotsford and Surrey, the religious community, because this has an Indo-Canadian element here, that's certainly true in the context of Brampton and Peel region as well. I would say that the community of parents and youth have to be involved, because what we're hearing out here is now that some youth are being targeted for action in terms of joining these gangs that are involved in these perpetrations. So I would say it's a pretty collective sense of community, a pretty inclusive sense of community. And I think it's really about that sense of solidarity and common purpose in terms of protecting the fundamental sense of safety. Now, here in Surrey, we've recently heard reports about people who are thinking about taking matters into their own hands, right? So we've had a couple of cases where there are reports of people firing back at the perpetrators. And that's exactly why it's so important that all of the community is involved.
What I mentioned that there's charges here in Winnipeg. What might the impact be of charges being laid in terms of the impact on other business owners that might be watching this?
Well, I think that the idea that the charges result in a deterrence really depends on whether there is a conviction that comes out of them, and I think especially on how slowly these wind through the court system. And that's, I think, the real detriment here is when they take a long time to wind through, there really is a loss of most of the deterrent effect. Unfortunately, it's often the same thing where the suspects are apprehended and they're simply deported because it seems like a no-cost consequence of being apprehended, right? They're just deported. There's no penalty other than that. So it's kind of a gamble. And from a cost-benefit perspective, which much of this extortion crime is linked to, that's not a huge cost, comparatively speaking.
Anything to add that you think is going to be valuable for us to understand here in Winnipeg, Mr. Deisman, that I might have missed?
No, I think it's wise to keep an eye on the federal government on this, because I really do think things are heating up to a tipping point, and there is a reluctant recognition. The federal government has been struggling with, I think, two tensions, like the tension between responding to the reality of this extortion crisis across Canada, and then the counter tension of wanting to have economic relationships with India. And that they're stuck between a rock and a hard place there. But I think that this is going to come to a resolution at the federal level.
Thank you for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yesterday, criminologist at the University of Fraser Valley. You can read more at cbc.ca/Manitoba. Now, as a point of clarity, CBC has not confirmed the cultural backgrounds of the business owners who were targeted in our city. We do know the incidents, as I mentioned, happened last July. Fires were set at a warehouse on Spruce, 2 convenience stores on Selkirk. Police say 3 convenience stores, 2 on Selkirk, 1 on Main, did pay money in exchange for protection from arson. There was also a theft at a retail business on Portage, not far from the perimeter. Now, police are asking anyone with information about the incidents or about those still wanted by investigators to contact Major Crimes. You can also submit tips anonymously to Crime Stoppers, 204-786-8477. It's time for sports. Claude Faig is in. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
So both Manitoba ranks perfect at the Scotties.
Yeah, that's right. So one playoff spot remains up for grabs at the Scotties Tournament of Hearts being played just outside of Toronto in Mississauga. In Pool A, Team Ontario, skipped by Haley Armstrong, is tied with Halifax skips Taylor Stevens. They're both at 5-2. The two will meet in draw 17 this afternoon, with the winner moving into the playoff round. They would be joining undefeated Manitoba rink as skipped by Caitlin Laws. They're 7-0, and Team Canada, led by Gimli, Manitoba native Carrie Anderson, she's sitting at 6-1. Now in Pool B, the playoff teams have already been determined, with the second Manitoba foursome of Beth Peterson, as well as Nova Scotia's Christina Black going through, along with Alberta. Now Peterson, who's 6-0, is excited for the opportunity of playing in the playoffs.
Is it official? Are you giving me the official? Perfect. Yeah, we thought after this win we would be in a good spot. So, I mean, it's lovely to hear. We had our eyes on the playoffs, definitely, coming into this week. But I'm looking forward to just the playoff atmosphere. We kind of got teased into having like a huge, crazy crowd our first game on Saturday afternoon. So I'm really hoping that comes back again because it's really fun.
Now, Peterson's foursome will look to wrap up top spot in their pool today. They faced Nunavut in draw 16 this morning, and then Alberta in draw 18 tonight.
Canada's Olympic women's hockey team is fully focused now on the Olympic Games coming up.
Yeah, Marcy. So 1 week from today, believe it or not, Canada's women's hockey team will be on the ice in Game 1 of the Winter Olympics in Italy. Concerns remain about the state of the ice at Santa Giulia Hockey Arena in Milan. For Canadian hockey players, though, the main concern for now is making sure the team is ready to compete. Here's Team Canada captain Marie-Philippe Poulin.
There's no better way to prepare to be able to practice and play with the best against the best. And obviously it is all new, and it's whoever's going to be ready to adapt, ready to go when the Olympics going to start. It's fun. It's pretty awesome to just jump on that ice and to see all the Olympians that plays for different countries, and that's what this league is all about. Obviously we wear the different jerseys, but at the end of the day we want everybody to succeed and do well.
Now, Canada will face Finland in the opener next Thursday. And remember, you can watch Olympic coverage both on CBC television and CBC Gem.
And a family homecoming for LeBron James in Cleveland.
Yeah, Marcy. So first off, wasn't much of a homecoming for the Raptors last night in Toronto. After winning 4 straight on the road, they visiting New York Knicks. Well, they had totally different ideas about that game. They outscored the Raptors by 16 points in the third quarter and 15 more in the fourth to beat the Raptors 119-92. Brandon Ingram led the Raps with 27 points. Now in Cleveland, that homecoming wasn't great for LeBron James and his Lakers. They were throttled 129-99 by the Cavaliers. And what may have been LeBron's final game in Cleveland as a Laker and perhaps as an NBA player. His son Bronny got a chance to play in front of family and friends, and for LeBron, that far outweighed the lopsided loss.
And my mom is here watching her son and her grandson. Like, I don't even know how to even, like, wrap that all in one in my brain, you know? And, yeah, it's so weird and so cool and so surreal, you know? My mom get to watch her son and her grandson play in the NBA at the same time. That's awesome.
Pretty awesome. James's contract, by the way, with the Lakers expires at the end of this season.
All right. Thanks, Claude.
Okay, Marcy, have a great day.
You too. That's Claude Faig with Morning Sports on CBC. Your morning commute going fine so far. Call Corey if not, 788-3093. And right after the news, we're going to play you a clue that could get you into Murder in F Major with the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra and Murdoch Mysteries. It's a great prize. It's a fabulous contest. So that's coming up after your CBC News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is minus 22, clearing throughout the day, and a high this afternoon of minus 17. And as always, there is a risk of frostbite. A new city pilot project is exploring working with Manitoba Housing and nonprofits to deal with derelict and vacant properties. The pilot could see some city-owned lots turned into affordable housing meant for home ownership. CBC's Rosanna Hempa reports.
At Purpose Construction, people facing barriers to employment learn to build homes from start to finish. Executive Director Sherry Bailey says trainees get paid classroom and on-the-job training. Ricky Corshane Cameron experienced addictions and homelessness before landing at Purpose Construction.
I'm happy to say that I'm actively back with my family now.
The nonprofit could be part of a new city pilot that'll see some derelict and vacant properties owned by the city developed into affordable housing. The program would transfer lots to Manitoba Housing, which would work with social enterprises to build homes and sell to people leaving social housing. City officials are optimistic. Purpose Construction has already built 3 houses on city lots. 2 have been sold to first-time homebuyers. The pilot will begin in the William White area and could expand to other neighborhoods. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Winnipeg.
And you can hear more on this story coming up in the next half hour right here on Information Radio. The head of a Manitoba Construction Association is surprised the NDP government is allowing a major trade college to close down. The Manitoba Institute of Trades and Technology is shutting down after this school year. It blames a drop in foreign student enrollment. Chris Lawrence at the Manitoba Heavy Construction Association points out it's happening as the province has been talking up the importance of training.
This is a sad moment for an institution and for its ability and track record to provide very good foundational education and training for young people who are looking to enter and develop careers in the construction industry in Manitoba.
The Provincial Minister of Advanced Education and Training, Renee Cable, says there is no way to backfill a 61% drop in enrollment. A Winnipeg City Councillor wants the province, city and school divisions to share the costs of building and maintaining play structures. St. Vital Councillor Brian Mays spent the last 10 days meeting with education stakeholders. In a report, Mays says the model of parent councils being asked to raise money for projects is outdated and needs to be revamped.
There's a place here for all of us to shoulder some responsibility and put some money toward these play structures.
Mays favors an approach used in Brandon where the city and local school division both contribute $50,000 towards play structures, add in some provincial funding just the way Saskatchewan does. And Mays says you have the perfect formula for providing kids a chance to have fun between classes. A remote First Nation in northern Quebec is in lockdown this morning amid reports of a shooting with multiple fatalities. The chief of the Cree Nation of Mistissini says all schools, offices, and community buildings have been ordered to stay closed. As well, members of the community are being urged to stay indoors. Specific details regarding this shooting have yet to be made public. Mistissini is a community in the James Bay region, 600 kilometers north of Quebec City. It has a population of 4,200 people. You can hear more on this developing story coming up on World Report at 8. The Brandon Police Service is preparing to spend nearly $500,000 on technology upgrades this year, including body-worn cameras. Inspector Jason Dupuis says they want cameras in place by early April, with all frontline officers using them by September. It's part of a major upgrade to Brandon Police Force's digital evidence management system. Dupuis says it is the biggest technological change since cruiser cameras were introduced in the late 2000s.
This is probably one of the biggest things that, in my career policing, and one of the most drastic things that will change the way we police to an extent.
Brandon Police are asking for about $14 million in this year's budget, most of which covers staffing. A Winnipeg doctor has been reprimanded for failing to conduct physical exams of 3 patients, refusing to prescribe meds for a 4th, and demanding a 5th patient bring their mother to a visit even though that patient was an adult. The College of Physicians and Surgeons of Manitoba is requiring Dr. Nazmum Bouyan to practice medicine with a monitor. She pleaded guilty to 11 charges from the college. Those charges include misleading the college in its investigation. And standing with Minneapolis.
Minneapolis, I hear your voice crying through the bloody mist.
Bruce Springsteen says he wrote this song, Streets of Minneapolis, on Saturday after the shooting death by ICE agents of Alex Pretty. On social media, Springsteen says it's dedicated to the people of Minneapolis, our innocent immigrant neighbors, and in the memories of Alex Pretty and Renee Good. And you can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
I heard part of that yesterday, so it's interesting we listen to all the lyrics. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Let's get into a brief look at our regional forecast here with Abby.
Yeah, we're looking at temperatures well below freezing across the province this morning. The southern regions, we're seeing temperatures hover between -20 and -29, while up north, we're seeing temperatures close to -28. In Winnipeg right now, we're looking at -23, and we see light snow at the airport.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey, how's the commute?
Quiet commute this morning so far. No major issues to report. But if you're walking your bike and driving, you see some, you can give me a call. 204-788-3093.
All right, a lot of you have been playing our contest, and why not? What a prize pack we have. And I actually just got a note on Facebook this morning saying, Marcy, tell us when the clue's coming up. So I warned you, 7:40. Are you ready for it? Up next, it's our Murdoch Mysteries WSO contest.
Manitoba, a mysterious place. There's cases to be solved. Your help would be music to my ears and yours, because this prize pack is so good, it's almost criminal. Solve the clue, and you could be enjoying 2 tickets to Murdoch Mysteries, Murder in F Major with the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra, dinner at Kevin's Bistro, and a limo ride to get there, as well as a meet and greet with the actor who plays Lewin Watts on Murdoch Mysteries.
All right, before we play you today's clue for a chance at that prize pack, let's find out if you knew yesterday's answer. Here's yesterday's clue.
The dark wilderness. Strange sounds heard from the shadows, not from a falcon, but from human voices. Unexplained burns. What incident is this referring to?
The answer, the Falcon Lake incident. There's always little clues in there. Not from a falcon, he says. So the Falcon Lake incident is what we were looking for. And some of you were able to give even more detail. We're talking about Steve Mahalik, who is a Manitoban who claimed to have seen a UFO at Falcon Lake, wrote a book about it. His son now gives tours through that area. In fact, Steve Mahalik had these physical burns that were unusual. He said they came from the encounter and presented objects that he said came from that encounter as well that were mildly radioactive. So we were looking for the Falcon Lake incident as the answer. If you emailed that, you got it correct at win@cbc.ca. You've earned entry into our contest. So every day, if you get the clue right and you email us, your name goes into the contest. You get 1 entry a day if you get the answers correct. We were going to do a random draw at the end to see who's going out on February 7th. So you all ready? Here's today's clue.
What 49-foot-long monstrosity became the namesake of a provincial park? Email win@cbc.ca with your answer.
What 49-foot monstrosity became the namesake of a provincial park? Win@cbc.ca if you know the answer, and if you get it right, you'll be in the draw to head out on February 7th. You'll be checking out Murdoch Mysteries, Murder in F Major with the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra, hearing the music, meeting one of the stars, getting there by limo, eating at Kevin's Bistro. It's a really nice prize. Also, you get a whole bunch of swag from CBC and Murdoch as well. So cbc.ca/Manitoba/community if you want to be reminded of some details. We will play the clue again after 8 o'clock in case you need to hear it again. And if you know it now, you can email your answer to win@cbc.ca. Well, if you're out and about this morning, then you know that we have certainly been had our fair share of cold weather, and we've been in it for some time now. It should take a turn over the weekend, but it's still minus 21 right now. Our high minus 17 today, and as Abby's been mentioning, wind chill this morning will feel more like minus 35. Everyone seems to say that if you dress for it in Manitoba, you're okay. But as technology keeps getting better and better for winter gear, we thought we'd take a look at some of the options so you're not left in the cold. So we sent Jim Agapito to check that out.
Winnipeg is experiencing a major cold snap. Earlier in January, temperatures dipped below minus 25, triggering province-wide Origin yellow weather warnings. So we wanted to ask an expert, what kind of gear should you use for this weather other than the usual suspects? We're about to find out.
My name is Rick Sean, and I'm the owner of Wilderness Supply.
Okay, let's talk about commuters. What should they be wearing?
I think the first thing to say with commuters is always be prepared. Wind is the biggest factor for making you really feel cold. You're going to want to have a nice warm jacket, toque, face mask. Any exposed skin and temperature like this, it'll freeze pretty quickly. Even if you've got only these little pieces, exposed to the wind, you can freeze pretty fast. One of the first things we say is don't wear cotton. Don't wear a cotton base layer. I have a poly cotton shirt. So if you can, wear something like polyester, synthetic material, or wool. I love wool against my skin. What it does is it allows the body, when you're sweating, it pushes the moisture away from your body. Cotton actually holds all that moisture in the material. So when you have the wet material against your body, it actually makes you feel a lot colder. Have a good mid layer like this, and then something heavy on the outside.
Materials have changed over the last decade. Can you tell me how gear has changed over the last little while?
One of the things that we've seen in a gear shop is actually the outdoor clothing has become a lot lighter. And so when a person comes in here looking, they're like, oh yeah, I really need a big heavy jacket. And we hand them something that feels really, really light. They're like, no, this isn't good enough. But actually, I actually wear in minus 30, 40, I wear a fairly light jacket, but it's because of this, it's because of the insulative materials that they use on the inside. They're much lighter, they're much thinner, but they still have really good loft and they keep the body heat in. That's the point. You want that body heat to stay inside your body. You want it to be a windbreak so that the wind is not cooling you down from the outside. Each material, each jacket has a wind rating. It's measured in CFM, it's cubic feet per meter of the jacket. So for example, if it has 0 CFM, you could put your face right up against the jacket and blow on it and you wouldn't feel that breath on the inside. So it's completely windproof. When you're walking and you're just out there just doing not super fast activities, that's probably what you're looking for is a 0 CFM. It's a complete wind block. If you're out there doing really, really active stuff, you actually want something that breathes more. So 50, 100 CFM, it breathes more. And what that means is that it pushes that, it pushes the sweat and the heat from your body outwards so that the moisture doesn't stay inside. It's about keeping your body regulated, and it depends on what activity you're doing. Like we mentioned, if you're just walking really, really slow pace, you're not creating a lot of heat inside, so you're not sweating a lot. You don't need something that has breathability. But if you're out there snowshoeing or skiing or running or those kinds of things, you're creating a lot of body heat. So what we want to look at is how do we keep your body a certain temperature and not overheating.
And a jacket like this will keep me warm?
Totally. So
this feels like nothing.
I know, it feels like
nothing,
right?
Jacket.
It's so light.
Yeah.
So I typically wear that with what I'm wearing right now, which is a Smartwool mid layer. And I'll be good in minus 30, minus 40, completely windproof. The hood is awesome. Like if you actually just throw that hood up there and you can tell it has this little elastic thing. So if you pull it down a little bit, it actually sticks to your head and it doesn't blow away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, let's just go and try this. It's absolutely surprising how something so thin can keep me so warm, especially in this weather. And one of the technologies I've been hearing about are heated gear. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
For sure. So actually heated gear has been around for a while, like probably well over a decade, but it hasn't really become popular for the last couple of years. And the reason being is because battery technology has not been super great. We've had, just decades ago, like when we started this, the batteries were bad. We had lots of warranty issues, but heated technology's come a come a really long way. So batteries are really great these days. You're seeing them in gloves and mitts, which we have here, but you can get them in socks and vests and jackets and all kinds of things, even pants. And yeah, I mean, for somebody who wants to really be able to regulate their heat throughout the day, they could just flick the button, heats it up, get too hot, turn it off. You know, it's a normal glove again.
And how long do batteries or gear like this last?
Depending on the product and depending on the quality of the brand, I mean, they can last hours, so 4-6 hours.
Just a reminder for Manitobans to dress appropriately and stay warm. Jim Agapito, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Trooper. He's not into winter and he keeps getting sent out. Giving us advice there about the latest technology involved in staying warm in Winnipeg, out at Wilderness Supply in the city.
Local news is in decline across Canada, and this is bad news for all of us. With less local news, noise, rumors, and misinformation fill the void, and it gets harder to separate truth from fiction. That's why CBC News is putting more journalists in more places across Canada, reporting on the ground from where you live, telling the stories that matter to all of us. Because local news is big news. Choose news, not noise. CBC News.
7:46 a.m. the time right now. Man, the shot on YouTube of the sky out there looks almost like an inky purple gray. It's kind of pretty. We will see some sunshine as we have clearing expected late this afternoon in Winnipeg, and some light snow is reported right now at the airport. It's -21. Brandon, you're -29. Thompson, you're -25. Well, as you heard in the news this morning, Manitoba Institute of Trades and Technology is going to be closing. Their international student enrollment has dropped. We are in the works right now in our news department, and Corey's also placed a call here to try and get some more reaction to this from staff, teachers, industry partners as well. So if you want to weigh in, 788-3205. Also, speaking of students, coming up after 8, a high school student says the Winnipeg transit system is failing him and his classmates. He wrote to a city councillor as part of a school project on democracy. We're going to talk to him about what's been going on as he's been waiting for the bus. Next on the show, though, let's build on a story that we've also been hearing in the news about the city of Winnipeg launching this pilot project to help deal with derelict and vacant properties. The plan would see Manitoba Housing and social enterprises working together to build affordable housing. The idea is that those houses would then be sold to people leaving social housing. So the CBC's Rosanna Hempel is in studio this morning with more information on her story. Good morning.
Good morning.
So tell us more about the pilot.
So it was approved by City Council last month, and the idea is that certain derelict and vacant properties that the city now owns would be transferred to Manitoba Housing. From there, Manitoba Housing would then work with social enterprises to either build a brand new house on that lot or renovate the property that's there. And the houses would then be sold to someone leaving Manitoba Housing or social housing. And the pilot is focusing on the William White area to start. In that neighborhood, about 10% of homes are derelict or vacant. And the city has selected an empty lot on Pritchard Avenue as the first one in this pilot. I spoke to Jonathan Hildebrand about this. He's the city's manager of strategic planning.
We're going to see if that partnership can work and what we might need to do to fine-tune it and grow it. If it works, if we're able to do it once and we're able to prove the concept works, yes, we'll continue to do it. And yes, it won't just be limited to that one housing improvement zone. It'll expand, if possible, to the other 4 housing improvement zones where there are also issues of dereliction and vacancies.
So he's optimistic about this pilot, and part of the reason is the city has already worked with social enterprises, including Purpose Construction, which focuses on new builds. And you probably heard Jonathan talk about housing improvement zones. The city has designated 5 areas in need of revitalized housing, and those areas are William White, like he mentioned, North Point Douglas, Centennial, Spence, and West Broadway.
It's all pretty central in the city here. The city has a number of these derelict and vacant properties. Remind us how they got them.
Yeah, so the city can acquire residential properties through a number of different ways. For one, they can get them if the owner voluntarily surrenders title to the city. And another way is through expanded use of the city's power to take title without compensation. And this is a legal tool the city can turn to if owners have either failed to pay their taxes or been found guilty of violating the city's vacant building bylaw. And here is the city's Jonathan Hildebrand again.
and it becomes a bit of a pipeline right into the city that we can then turn over to Manitoba Housing. If it's the right type of property in the right location, we can turn it over to Manitoba Housing, who can then use the partnership with social enterprise to either renovate it or build new.
And the pilot project isn't the only program that the city is working on. Earlier this month, the city announced it was looking for developers to build affordable housing on 11 vacant city lots.
You mentioned Purpose Construction, so tell us more about how the city has been working with them.
Yeah, so Purpose Construction is a nonprofit. They've been around since 2009, and their business model is based on offering 5 months of paid construction training to people facing barriers to employment. So they start with classroom training. They practice all the steps that go into building a house. So everything from framing, mudding walls, putting in floors, siding. Then they go out onto job sites with crew leads, and then they get to do the real thing there. So here's Executive Director Sherry Bailey.
A lot of the folks that end up with us, they've been sort of excluded from the traditional labor market for a number of reasons. And if you don't have work, it's hard to provide for a family. It's hard to find housing. It's hard to do a lot of things. And so having them come in here, it's a paid training. It allows them to kind of settle. We've seen family reunifications, so people are getting their kids back. The housing stability, where folks 2 weeks ago were sleeping under a bridge, are able to get into housing. Some folks go into treatment.
And I had the chance to talk to a former trainee who now works at the organization. His name is Ricky Corshane Cameron. He's 39 and he does have some background in roofing. He told me he ended up out of the workforce for about 8 years, and that was due to a combination of things, addictions, going to jail, being homeless, and he's also been in and out of treatment a number of times as well. But he did tell me he's been off meth and fentanyl for about 1.5 years now, and he says that's thanks in part to getting a traineeship at Purpose Construction.
I'm happy to say that I'm actively back with my family now. I'm contributing, I'm consistent, I'm happy, and I know that a lot of people that are homeless and that are trapped in addiction, they just need some help, just like everybody else.
So in the last 1.5 years, the city sold 3 of its residential lots to Purpose Construction, and Sherry Bailey told me they've since built 3 brand new houses on them and sold 2 to first-time home buyers.
Oh, you got to look at one of these, right? What are the houses like?
Yeah, so I got to visit one of the ones that hasn't sold yet, built by Purpose Construction. It's close to the city's Pritchard lot that'll be used in the pilot. It's a brand new 2-story house with blue siding. The inside is modern. It's got laminate floors, a very spacious kitchen, living room. Sherry told me they're in the process of finding a buyer for it, and the other 2 homes were sold to families at 20% less than their market value. And we know that these families are either Canadian citizens or permanent residents who've lived in Winnipeg for at least 12 months. And we know that they faced some kind of barrier purchasing a home on their own. The agreement is that the family it's sold to owns it for at least 10 years.
Why do social enterprises like Purpose Construction want to be a part of these programs?
So the way that Sherry Bailey described it to me is it's not only that they can they'll have jobs and training to offer people, but it's also that it'll mean that the derelict and vacant properties situation will be dealt with faster. And here's her take on that.
It's actually critical because when there aren't big profits, people who are in the private market are not interested, right? That's why these lots are actually coming to us, is because they weren't selling on the private market. So they are often the lots that kind of sit forever, and then they come to us. And it makes what we do possible, because then, we're able to recoup that in the build, and we just want to reinvest it. That's it.
And for Ricky Corshane Cameron, the former trainee I spoke with, it's kind of a full circle moment for him, because he's experienced homelessness. Now he gets to be part of helping other people get into home ownership and stable housing and help improve the neighborhood.
I think that's pretty cool, because it's insane how many burned down houses and dirty rubble lots you got in the North End. It's you go down a neighborhood and there's burnt house. You could be doing something with that. You got all kinds of people that are running around here homeless, addicted on the streets. You could be building housing for people like that.
Rosanna, thank you very much for bringing in your report to us this morning.
You're welcome.
And also the video. If you're watching on YouTube, then you would have seen the video as Rosanna was describing the home she was able to visit. Rosanna Hempel is a reporter here with us, CBC Manitoba. She'll have even more tonight on a story at CBC News at 6, and you can read about the pilot right now at cbc.ca/Manitoba. It is 5 minutes to 8 o'clock. We're going to get into national and international news. There's quite a lot developing. The premiers are about to be speaking throughout the day here because they're going to be meeting with the Prime Minister. So that's one of the things we're watching. Premier Wabkanu was on The Current yesterday teeing up this meeting and what he's hoping for Manitoba. In case you missed that, you can go back and check The Current. There's a full transcript and audio online as well. In addition, we are very closely watching what is happening in some other developing news in Manitoba this morning, rather across the country this morning, shooting on a Northern First Nation in another province. We're going to hear more about that in a moment. And I do want to mention as well that we have some local traffic updates that have just been developing while Rosanna and I are talking here. So Chris has called our commuter line saying southbound Osborne right now in the village, right in the village, there's an illegally parked car in the curb lane, and that's causing big backups because, well, the village is obviously a difficult place to have something like that happen. So if you're caught in that line or anywhere else, give us a call. 788-3093 is where you can reach us to tell us about the morning commute. Otherwise, Corey said it was actually not too bad out there. A little bit slippery if you're an active commuter. He runs to work, so it was a bit slick underfoot. But otherwise, it should be pretty good. We haven't had any calls on the highways, though, about visibility or issues, so it's pretty calm winter drive across Manitoba, it seems. Right now in the city, we do have light snow being reported at the airport where it's minus 21. Brandon, you're mainly clear and a colder minus 29 right now. Thompson's partly cloudy and minus 25. For Winnipeg today, we should clear this afternoon and have a high of minus 17. If you're looking ahead to the weekend already, I know it's just Thursday, but some sunshine tomorrow, high 19. And then Saturday, it's going to be warmer, but it will snow. So our high Saturday is 8 degrees, minus 8 degrees. Oops, wishful thinking. Minus 8 degrees on Saturday for that last day of January, and periods of snow, though, expected Saturday and Saturday night as well. So we could be shoveling again. After 8 o'clock on Information Radio, a Winnipeg high school student says the Winnipeg transit system is failing him and his classmates. He says his commute to school used to be simple, but when the bus route changed last summer, his ride took a turn for the worse. As part of a democracy project in his school, he's actually written to his local area councillor. We're going to hear the city's response. He's going to be in with his teacher after 8 on CBC. Plus, your chance to win a fabulous CBC Winnipeg prize pack to go see WSO perform with CBC's Murdoch Mysteries. We're going to play you today's clue once again, and please enter the contest because it's Thursday already. Tomorrow you got your last clue coming up, so give it a shot. You can enter once a day. So if you've yet to enter, you still have a chance to enter today if you get the clue right, and tomorrow as well. So good luck. We'll have that final clue for you. Today's clue, one final time. You'll hear it after 8 o'clock. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells. It's 2 minutes to. She's here with our local news headlines.
The head of a Manitoba Construction Association is surprised the NDP government's allowing a major trade college to close down. The Manitoba Institute of Trades and Technology is shutting down after this school year. It blames a drop in foreign student enrollment. And a new report from a Winnipeg City Councillor calls for more government funding for new school playground equipment. St. Vital Councillor Brian Mays says new play structures should not be the subject of bake sales by parent councils. He wants it to include assistance from the province, municipalities, and school divisions. We'll hear more in our next local news coming up at 8:30.
All right. Thanks very much, Heather. We'll stay tuned for World Report coming up as we hear more of what is happening this morning nationally. We are going to be hearing developing news out of Cree Nation in Quebec. People this morning have been asked to shelter in place. So we're about to hear the very latest from what is happening there. It is in the James Bay region in the far north. We're going to hear on World Report the latest. Stay with us. It's 1 minute to. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube.
On cue.
It's funny to me. I think that's funny. That's comedy. That's comedy.
I'm Talia Schlanger in for Tom Power. James Acaster is one of the UK's funniest comedians, but he used to be pretty hard on his audience. If things were not connecting, if people weren't laughing, that was their fault. James will tell you about the one gig that changed his outlook and why he started to welcome hecklers.
Q this morning at 10
10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
Canada is looking at a social media ban for kids under 14, similar to what Australia brought in last month. We'll hear how that ban is going in Australia and from experts who are torn on whether this is the most effective tool. That's coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Quebec Provincial Police say 2 men have been killed in a shooting on a remote First Nation. The Cree Nation of Mistissini is in lockdown while authorities look for the shooter. Further details of the incident are not yet known, but residents are being told to stay in their homes and keep doors and windows locked. Schools, offices, and all community buildings are closed, and travel in and out of the community is restricted. The Cree Nation of Mistissini is a community of about 4,200 people. It is in the James Bay region, 600 kilometers north of Quebec City. U.S. President Donald Trump's border czar is vowing to stay in Minneapolis until what Tom Homan calls, quote, the problem is gone. Homan spoke to media in the city just moments ago. He does admit mistakes have been made. Federal immigration operations continue to be criticized after clashes with protesters and the deaths of 2 U.S. citizens. World Report co-host John Northcott has been listening to Homan's comments. And John, what did he have to say?
Marcia, there's been a tremendous amount of criticism of ICE and their actions, including the deaths of 2 American citizens on the streets of Minneapolis. So what we are seeing here now is the so-called border czar, the man coming in to try to right the ship, at least from the Trump administration's point of view. He is saying that their operations have not been perfect, and he's saying that there will be changes. He's saying that it's going to be more now about enforcement using targeted strategic operations. Have a listen.
We will conduct targeted enforcement operations. Targeted. What we've done for decades. When we hit the streets, we know exactly who we're looking for.
He says they are not surrendering the president's mission, pointing out that the laws they are enforcing are federal laws, and if people have a problem with those laws, then it should be Congress that they turn to try to implement those changes.
So what is next?
A lot of it is what he talked about in terms of what they do on the ground, ICE agents. Will there be some kind of moderation in their behavior? Will there be more directed and targeted moving in using, as he says, people's information about their immigration status and their criminal history? But the other aspect that he calls for is for the protests and the hostile behavior, the rhetoric to dissipate. He says if that then lessens, it would decrease the need for more security on the ground, and everyone would be safer.
All right. Thank you, John.
Thanks, Marcia.
My World Report co-host John Northcott in studio. The Assembly of First Nations is cautioning Indigenous travelers about entering the United States. Treaty rights allow them to pass freely across the U.S. border. As Jocelyn Chappelle reports, the AFN says there are reports of people being questioned and detained.
AFN advises that any First Nation could make sure that our people are well aware, to make sure that they have documentation.
Assembly of First Nations Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Nepanak says travelers should be extra vigilant. She says crossing the border should not be something Indigenous people fear. But the detention of Indigenous people by immigration agents makes a warning necessary.
The AFN strongly condemns these actions and reaffirms First Nations' inherent right and our Jay Treaty right to cross the border.
The 1794 Jay Treaty allows unrestricted travel for individuals with at least 50% blood quantum, or Indigenous ancestry.
More or less, they put me through hell for 2.5 hours.
Harley Manakis, who is Gwich'in, was detained last week during a layover in Texas. He was traveling from Costa Rica back home to the Northwest Territories. Familiar with the Jay Treaty, he told agents he was eligible to travel freely under it, but was unaware he needed a blood quantum letter.
Luckily that I managed to get the phone call to my wife and tell her I needed the blood quantum, and thankful to my uncle, my auntie, chief and council that everybody jumped in and a few more extra people, and they got me that paper at the right time.
Global Affairs Canada says it is aware of multiple cases of Canadians currently or previously in immigration-related detention in the U.S., and that consular officials can provide assistance to Canadians detained abroad. Jocelyn Chappelle, CBC News, Yellowknife.
Britain's Prime Minister says relations with China are in a strong and good place. Keir Starmer is in Beijing meeting with President Xi Jinping. Starmer says much of their discussion is about trade.
It was a real strengthening of the relationship, and that's in the national interest because, of course, there are huge opportunities here in China. It's the second biggest economy in the world, and that's why we've got such a big business delegation.
Starmer is the first British Prime Minister to visit China since 2018. He is the latest world leader to make the trip. Earlier this month, Prime Minister Mark Carney was in Beijing to advance Canada's trade relationship. A number of countries are looking to China as trade friction from the Trump administration heats up. And Keir Starmer is already seeing some results from this visit. British drug maker AstraZeneca is announcing an investment in China. The company says it will invest $15 billion over the next 4 years. Plans include expanding medicines manufacturing along with research and development. It's down to business today for Prime Minister and premiers in this country. Mark Carney hosted First Ministers for dinner last night at his Harrington Lake retreat. And later this morning, their summit begins in Ottawa. Janice McGregor is in our parliamentary bureau. And Janice, there are many topics that they'll be talking about, but economic trade issues will dominate. What can you tell us?
Marcia, no big breakthroughs or decisions yet on the specific projects that premiers are pitching as part of the national strategy to build up Canada's economic defences. But while they don't lead negotiations, provincial premiers are important players in not just preparations for the review of the North American Trade Agreement, but also the ongoing push to diversify Canada's trade. BC Premier David Eby, for example, recently back from his own trade mission in India ahead of the Prime Minister's visit there later this spring. And provinces have their own people in Washington too, preparing for what Eby acknowledged yesterday is probably going to be a pretty rough ride between now and the July 1st deadline for renewing CUSMA.
It's going to take an all-Canada effort to get this across the line, but really impossible to know where the Americans are at, what their plans are, what they hope to get out of this. This is supposed to be a review, not a renegotiation, but clearly that's not the case. So.
The Prime Minister told reporters yesterday that Canada's consultations on what it wants from this review are complete. But Carney needs to make sure all the premiers are on board. Ontario Premier Doug Ford yesterday said Team Canada's all on the same page, but then in the next breath pitched his idea of building a fortress Can-Am around manufacturing in his province. And that's exactly the kind of comment that risks offending Mexican officials, just as Dominic LeBlanc is preparing to lead a trade mission there next month.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa. The push to buy Canadian is loud and clear, but some shoppers say it can be tough. As our colleagues at Marketplace found out, some Canadian-looking products might actually be American. Here's Rosa Marcatelli.
Okay, proudly Canadian on the front. Same thing on the back.
We're at the grocery store on a mission to buy Canadian. For many, that means picking products that were made here with homegrown ingredients. But some shoppers tell us it's not that easy.
Canada's #1 brand.
St. Catharines, Ontario's Dave Lawson noticed that on Betty Crocker's chocolate chip cookie mix. Labeled Canada's #1 selling baking mix brand, with a maple leaf on the front. But on the back, where it's easy to miss, product of the USA.
And I go, okay, this is advertising trying to make it look Canadian when in reality it's not.
General Mills, the company behind the cookie mix, says it is Canada's top-selling baking brand. The label isn't new, and it reflects the pride they feel being part of kitchens across the country.
McCain isn't just a company in Canada.
Even iconic brands can surprise. McCain Super Spirals fries, Maple Leaf, proudly Canadian on the front, but they're a product of the U.S. McCain says the machinery to make their Super Spirals fries only exists there, saying they are proudly Canadian, with 92% of the potato products they sell grown and made in Canada, adding their labels follow regulations. Mike Von Masso is a food economics professor at the University of Guelph.
We are seeing some maple washing, whether intentional or not.
The federal minister responsible for ensuring labels are clear and accurate, Marjorie Michel, tells us the government is looking into it. Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Toronto.
For the full investigation, watch the Maple Makeover tomorrow night at 8. You can watch on CBC Television, CBC Gem, or on your YouTube page. That is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Well, we're not flipping the calendar yet, but we're close, Manitoba. Still cold this morning across the province. Right now, light snow minus 21 in Winnipeg. Kelsey Dams, our cold spot at minus 38. Man. January. It'll let up by the weekend, and we're expecting a little bit of snow, so we'll get milder, we promise. Tell you where it's cold if you're standing this morning at the bus stop, especially if you are waiting. We have had a lot of feedback since last year. Winnipeg changed its transit system and routes. This half hour on the show, a Winnipeg high school student gives Winnipeg Transit a failing grade. But will it turn into an A for him? We're going to talk about a project that he's doing on democracy. He's written to his area councillor about what's been happening with his bus route since it changed. Spoiler alert, it hasn't been working. So we're going to talk to him and his teacher. In addition, those of you who love this Murdoch Mysteries prize pack contest with WSO, you have another chance to enter. We'll replay today's clue coming up. And why not? It's a fabulous night out, February 7th. A limo, some food, going to the WSO. We'll play that clue one more time. Right now to developing news out of Manitoba. Heather Wells is back at 8:11 with our headlines.
Good morning. Well, the City of Winnipeg is launching a pilot project to develop certain derelict and vacant properties into affordable housing meant for home ownership. The city's manager of strategic planning says this program will see some city-owned lots transferred to Manitoba Housing. Jonathan Hildebrand says he's optimistic about this pilot in part because he says the city's already worked with social enterprises. And a Brandon police officer has pleaded not guilty to assault causing bodily harm after an August 2023 incident that a woman says left her with a broken collarbone. More on those stories in our next local news at 8:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, as mentioned, I'm Marcy Marcusa, and you are on CBC's Information Radio, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app or YouTube, where you're about to see the weather maps pop up because Abby's going to talk about today's forecast.
It's all about the wind chill, Marcy. Most of the region's seen wind chills close to minus 40 this morning. Even in Winnipeg, where we are right now, we're looking at wind chill close to minus 37 in some areas in the city. For Winnipeg right now, minus 21, minus 22 at the airport. Light snow still being tracked there. Temperatures will hold steady between minus 25 and minus 19 all morning, close to the noon period. Light winds, highs should be around minus 17, but with a wind chill factored in, it's going to feel like minus 35 this morning. So if you're making that transition from one bus to another, spending time at the airport, on the road, you're exposed to a risk of frostbite on exposed skin. So take it easy. Tonight we'll see some clear conditions, but still pretty cold. Temperatures will drop to as low as minus 30, and the wind chill overnight would get to minus 49. So this might be one of those nights you might want to plug in the vehicle if you're leaving them outside on a parking lot. Up north, we're seeing temperatures also in the range of minus 20 to minus 39, with wind chill close to minus 40. Winnipeg right now, minus 22.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk's pop back in. Still quiet?
It's still fairly quiet unless you're in Osborne Village. Maybe it'll be too quiet because you're just kind of sitting there. Southbound Osborne, right in the heart of the village. Heard from Chris that there is an illegally parked car. It's causing some backups. So that's the only issue, though, that I've actually heard of so far this morning. But if you're walking, you're biking, you're driving, you see something, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, as I mentioned, a Winnipeg high school student says the Winnipeg transit system is failing him and his classmates. He says his commute to school used to be pretty simple, but when the bus route changed last summer, the ride took a turn for the worst. He says his bus was often late, and he was tired of the longer travel time, so frankly, he gave up on it pretty quick. He's also written a letter now to his city councillor, Devi Sharma, about it. It's the focus of a school project on democracy he's doing. So Gershon Manku is in grade 10 at Maples Collegiate, and Gershon is 15 years old. He's in studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and your teacher's here too, Chantal Ramraj. Hi, Chantal.
Hi, Marcy.
So your route used to take the 33 bus, right?
Yes.
Okay, so and it switched then in that part of the city. It would have switched to 2 buses?
Yeah.
Okay, so the 37 and the 336.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. So when you used to go to school, how fast was the 33?
It was an 8-minute bus ride. It was very simple.
Okay. And so it was like 8 minutes. And how many years did you take it, Gershon? You're like you're 15 now. So
Yeah, I
you've been
took
taking the
it
bus for a while?
like almost the entirety of my freshman year.
Okay. And did you ever have major issues with it, or was it pretty consistent? What was it like?
It was very consistent. All I would have to do is just like show up at my bus stop, get in, and then I'd be at school.
Okay. So you would be coming from what neighborhood then, if I'm thinking of that part of town?
I live in Amber Trails.
Got it. And would you take it with other students, or was it a...
Yeah, it would be on me and my friends and like just everybody in the Amber area.
Got it. And so most people would be on the bus.
A lot of people.
So this changes, and you try the new system.
Uh-huh.
Did it involve a transfer then?
Yeah, it was 2 buses, and it was just like super complicated.
What was complicated about it?
It's like the bus takes you in a whole different direction. The bus stops have changed, and then you have to change and then you have to get on another bus just to get to where you're going. Where before it was just a simple route.
Got it. A lot of people talk about the walk being different. Did you have to walk farther as well, or that wasn't an issue?
For me, I kind of had to walk farther.
Okay. How long would the whole thing take you when you did try it?
Like 45 minutes.
45?
Mm-hmm.
Compared to?
8-minute bus ride that would take me to school.
What'd you think of that?
I just thought it was overcomplication where there shouldn't be.
Yeah. We are going to talk more about how you're getting to school now in a minute, but I want to get you to read, because you actually sent a letter, as we mentioned, to Councillor Devi Sharma, right? And in front of you, you've actually got a transcript. I was going to read it, but you're here, so why would I read your words? Tell me a little bit, read this section out here that we've highlighted, okay?
Okay. All right. For me, this isn't just a news story. It's my daily life. If I do use the bus, I have to change 2 buses to get to school. Because the schedules are rarely on time, it's annoying. Because you took away a direct bus for this overcomplicated mess of a transit system. And now if I do take the bus, when I'm not trying to avoid it at all costs, I'm stuck waiting for transfers in the cold. It has reached the point where I prefer calling an Uber to make it to class on time. It's not even about the money. It's about the fact the system should be a lifeline, not ruined by overcomplication, or is ruined by overcomplication.
So that's a section. So you've kind of answered my next question there. You take Uber sometimes now?
Yeah, I Uber a lot now.
Do you? Okay. So tell me a little bit about why you've chosen to do that, and are others also choosing to do that, other students?
Yeah, so I usually carpool with my friends, and me and my friends and a bunch of other people who used to take the bus, now we're all in different cars going to the same place.
Really?
Yeah.
How many carpools, like in your neighborhood? Do you have a sense of?
Just on my street alone, there's 6 different cars.
6 different...
6 different cars with like 1 to 2 people in, and that's just my street.
And would that otherwise have been students that are busing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Chantal, this is part of, I alluded to this, so I'll go to you now, to your teacher here. This is part of a classroom assignment, or I guess it morphed into that, right? So what are you actually having the students work on?
For sure. So this is part of a grade 10 geography class, and our focus was climate change. And actually the assignment criteria was to look at federal policy. And I don't take the bus anymore. So I have heard murmurs about the Winnipeg transit changes amongst the students, but it's not something that I had been focused on. So with all assignments, I tried to open it up and hear from students what's important to them. Education should be a partnership and a conversation. And Gershon wrote this letter, and he said, I think I didn't do it right, but I read it, and I said, you did it exactly right. This is exactly what this is meant to be. Democracy is about what's important to you and how you feel about how things are working where you live and where you pay taxes and where your family works and pays taxes.
For sure. And it's the one thing we all have in common, right? For all the differences in the world, everybody's riding the bus in Winnipeg and thinking about what this new system is working or not. And we all have city councillors that we share. So how did you feel about writing to the city councillor? Was that because your teacher said this is part of the project? Like, do you think you would have otherwise?
So for me, I actually did it wrong. the project was supposed to be different. And she said all, and me, I was like not really paying attention, which is my fault.
You thought because it was supposed to be federal or something?
It was supposed to be federal, I'm pretty sure.
Got it.
And
But she lets you swing into this, though.
Yeah, no, I just wrote about something that mattered to me.
Yeah.
About like the roads and the new transit system.
Yeah.
And I showed her the letter and she liked it.
Good. So then it did become part of your project to
It
write to the
did.
counselor. Were you nervous when you wrote to Devi Sharma? That's your area counselor. How'd you?
Not really.
Okay. So tell me what the response was. You read part of the letter. No worries. Just pick it up. Live radio. Tell me a little bit about what the response was when you wrote to Devi Sharma.
So when I wrote to her, same day I got an email, and then the next day I got a phone call, and
From her?
It was from her executive assistant.
Okay.
But I don't know if the email was directly from her, but it was an email talking, and it was about we would like to speak to you. From Devi Sharma's, I think it was either her or her executive assistant.
Okay. And were you satisfied with the response you got to your concerns?
Not really. So when we eventually did get on the phone and I was talking to him, it felt like he was he was like kind of dismissive. I felt like I was being dismissed, and he was giving me like very vague direction into like the things I was saying.
What kind of research did you include in your letter to Councillor Sharma? Because you looked up some data too.
So I had an article about how the transit system is expected to lose 8.5 million in fare revenue and how ridership went down by 14%.
Mm-hmm.
And when I showed these stats to her executive assistant, he was quite unfamiliar with them and and it felt like I was being dismissed.
Okay. And you also included some things about climate change as one of the concerns in your letter. How come you did that?
So like me, and I think a lot of Canadians, we hear about going green by 2050, net zero emissions. But how can we go net zero emissions when we're forcing people back into our cars?
Yeah. What do you hope the city does out of hearing your concerns? You said your immediate, interaction was a bit disappointing, but what do you hope might come out of it?
I hope we get a simpler a transit system like we had before. Like the transit system is something you could rely on. It should be reliable, accessible, and a lifeline. It shouldn't be something that's ruined by overcomplication or that's just like business trying to make profit and is constantly cost cutting without the people in mind.
CBC reached out to the office of Councillor Devi Sharma for comment. She says she welcomes Gershon to send questions, hopes you can have a conversation moving forward and share dialogue about feedback. She's appreciative hearing from residents around city issues, particularly youth, she said. But then the city sent us stats, so I want to get your take on this. Because you were saying that, your new routes are 37 and 336. Those are the buses you're supposed to be taking. Mm-hmm. So the city said that according to their data, those buses are on time. And their version, I should say, of on time, not version, pardon me, how they quantify on time here is 1 minute early or 5 minutes late. So in that window, 76% of the time and 68% of the time, and are only late 12% of the time and 11% of the time, which is better than average. What's your response to that?
My response to that is the time, okay, we can deal with that. We live in Winnipeg. The climate here is bad. The bus being late, okay, we get that. But it being ruined by overcomplication, that's where the real problem begins. Because there's no need to change multiple buses just to get to where you're going.
I think when we looked into it,
we're just going to get your mic on again. Chantal?
Sorry. I think when we looked into it, because you have your personal experience, but in class we always talk about how we can connect that to the data and the research, which is important. And I think, what did you find? How many stops were, removed?
Yeah, so there was approximately 1,200 stops cut around the city.
Yeah.
And for such a city in such a cold climate, requiring people to walk so far in the cold, whereas the issue with wait time at the stop, that could be solved with bus shelters, with, solving with warming huts or something like this that we could think of as what the city could be in the future.
Well, thank you very much for both coming in. What will stay with me this morning is there's 6 carpools on your street and you're taking an Uber to class. I mean, that's
an American tech company.
And when I do take Uber, less money stays local.
Yeah. Thank you both. We're going to see what happens with this and more. Nice to meet you, Gershon.
Yeah, thank
Yeah, and to you as well, Chantal. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcy.
So that's grade 10 student at Maples Collegiate, Gershon Manku, and his teacher, Chantal Ramraj. As I mentioned, we reached out to the city. I'm going to read also part of, for comment about Gershon's letter. In a statement, the city also did say, quote, "We at Winnipeg Transit appreciate the feedback we received about our bus network. As we work continuously to make improvements to the system, we rely on detailed feedback from passengers about what is working and what is not. Details help inform the changes we're making. Our approach isn't, quote, wait and see per se. It's to study and analyze carefully, plan and model potential changes, and then take action with council approval where required." So we will see where this goes. As you know, we talk a lot about transit on this program, and you sure do write to us a lot as well.
Jeans with a J versus jeans with a G.
My jeans are blue.
Sydney Sweeney has great jeans.
A Swiss watchmaker offends with a facial faux pas.
We sincerely apologize for any distress or misunderstanding.
And Connecticut declares they have better pizza than New York.
Forget about it.
Rage Marketing on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on demand on CBC Listen.
Manitoba, a mysterious place. There's cases to be solved. Your help would be music to my ears and yours, because this prize pack is so good, it's almost criminal. Solve the clue, and you could be enjoying 2 tickets to Murdoch Mysteries, Murder in F Major with the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra, dinner at Kevin's Bistro, and a limo ride to get there, as well as a meet and greet with the actor who plays Lewin Watts on Murdoch Mysteries.
So if you want to win, you have to be able to know what this clue is about. So this is today's clue.
What 49-foot-long monstrosity became the namesake of a provincial park? Email win@cbc.ca with your answer.
All right, straight ahead question. We're looking for the answer. And if you get it right, you'll be entered to win a prize. Tomorrow, a new clue. Good luck, everyone. That night out is coming up on February 7th. The email, once again, win@cbc.ca. Well, we certainly hope that some of our Manitoba nominees for the Junos are going to come home with wins. The Junos were announced this week, the Juno nominations, and Winnipeg's own Alexa Dirks, better known as Begonia, snagged a nod. She was actually on Up to Speed talking about this. Her record, Fantasy Life, is up for Adult Alternative Album of the Year. The winners will be announced March 29th. Here's Begonia with Hotter Than the Sun.
Some things I'm quick to tend to, others overwhelm me, yeah. All often therapized, then intellectualized. Why there's something inside that makes me wanna hate myself. My need for validation, self-asphyxiation, of my medication. Oh, and then an everyday sedation, my sexual frustration, hot cigs at service stations.
Begonia, Hotter Than the Sun, nominated for a Juno this week with a number of other Manitobans. We've been grooving along in the control room to that one. Love it. You're on CBC, and the news is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it's minus 21, clearing throughout the day. Warmer than yesterday, a high of minus 17, but still in a risk of frostbite. The City of Winnipeg is launching a pilot project to develop certain derelict and vacant properties into affordable housing meant for home ownership. The city's manager of strategic planning says the program would see some city-owned lots transferred to Manitoba Housing. Jonathan Hildebrand says the goal is to build and renovate houses with the help of social enterprises.
We're starting very, very small. We're starting with one property at 400 Pritchard Avenue in the William White neighborhood, and we're going to see if that partnership can work and what we might need to do to fine-tune it and grow it.
Hildebrand says he is optimistic about the pilot, partly because the city has already worked with social enterprises. In the last year and a half, the city has sold 3 lots to the nonprofit Purpose Construction for $1. That organization has since built and sold 2 homes to first-time homebuyers with families committed to living there. The head of a construction association says he is sad a major trade college is closing. The Manitoba Institute of Trades and Technology is shutting its doors after this school year. It blames a drop in foreign student enrollment. Chris Lawrence at the Manitoba Heavy Construction Association is surprised the province is allowing the school to close.
Within the last day or so, the province was talking about how important it is to provide education and training for people who want to pursue careers in the construction industry. And then literally a day or two after, the very institution that is built around that mandate is allowed to close.
The Provincial Minister of Advanced Education and Training, Renee Cable, says there is no way to backfill a 61% drop in enrollment. We are following a developing story out of northern Quebec this morning. Amid reports of a shooting with multiple fatalities, a remote First Nation in northern Quebec is in lockdown. Police say 2 men in their 30s are dead, but no suspect is in custody. The chief of the Cree Nation of Mistissini says schools, offices, and community buildings have been ordered to stay closed, and members of the community are being urged to stay indoors. Mistissini is a community in the James Bay region. It's about 600 kilometers north of Quebec City, with a population of 4,200 people. Police in Brandon are looking to get body-worn cameras on some officers as soon as April. The technology is part of the force's multi-year digital evidence management system improvements. The project will cost around $440,000 in the 2026 budget. Brandon Mayor Jeff Fawcett says it reflects the needs of a growing city, especially when it comes to keeping up with technology.
It keeps our staff safe and makes sure they're following what they're doing, but also keeps people that are just anybody that they're involved with. I think gives them that sense of, proper procedures going to be followed. I don't see a lot of downside.
This year, Brandon police are asking for around $14 million in the budget, with the majority of that funding being used for staffing. A Brandon police officer has pleaded not guilty to assault causing bodily harm after an August 2023 incident that a woman says left her with a broken collarbone. CBC's Chelsea Kemp reports.
The trial of Constable Brett Long began with a video of him arresting Callista George. In August 2023, Long responded to a call that an intoxicated woman was brandishing a steak knife and machete. In video shown in court, he and 2 other officers are seen arriving on scene and detaining the woman on the ground as she was placed in handcuffs. A statement from one of the other responding officers says no weapon was found on scene. George, now 24 years old, told the court on Wednesday she went to the hospital after the arrest and was told she had a broken collarbone. George said she still has pain from the incident. The trial is expected to hear closing arguments Friday. Chelsea Kemp, CBC News, Brandon.
And a new report from a Winnipeg City Councillor calls for more government funding for new school playground equipment. St. Vital Councillor Brian Mays has released a report calling for a new model of funding. He wants it to include assistance from the province, municipalities, and school divisions. Springfield Heights School recently raised $5,000 for its new play structure through a donut sale. The North Kildonan School has been without a structure since last fall. Trevor Barkowitz is a member of the school's Parent Advisory Council.
Any additional funding would be greatly appreciated by the schools and families that are trying to get through this process.
Mays says the current model of parent councils fundraising for new equipment is outdated. He says new play structures should not be the subject of bake sales. You can find the latest news updated throughout your day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Heather Wells and Megan Ketchison and Alana Cole from our news department. Also, thanks to our Studio 15 crew, Abby Adeyemi, Darren Marash, and Corey Funk, and those who contributed to today's show. Associate producers Sierra Sanders, Sophia Peralta Barone, reporter Jim Agapito, and reporter Rosanna Hempel. In unit, our producer is Nellie Gonzalez of all of the CA shows, and the current affairs producer, as well as Leif Larson, who's the senior producer of audio here at CBC Manitoba. Corey, you've had a pretty quiet morning.
Yeah, just the only issue, southbound Osborne, right in the village there, I heard about a legally parked car in the curb lane causing some backup, so look out for that.
All right, so that means it's been pretty good for everybody out there listening. With the last word on our weather today, here's Abby.
Yeah, the region's dealing with wind chills in the valleys of minus 35, close to minus 40 this morning. Up north, we're seeing temperatures between minus 29 to minus 20, with a mix of misty conditions, while down south, we're seeing a mix of sun and clouds. Highs would be around minus 18, though the wind chill is something you should take into consideration today, so layer up.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for listening. We appreciate you being along with us and making us part of your morning here on CBC. This has been your morning show, Information Radio on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and YouTube. And stay right here because The Current is coming up next. We'll talk to you on Friday.